Oh, hey, what's up, everybody? You just heard the newest track from good friend of the show, Mela. Mosai, I think is how you say her artist name. I may have butchered that. Let me know if I did. I'll link that in the description afterwards. I forgot to do that earlier. Shout out to Mela. Great song there. It's a new one, just dropped like a week and a half ago. So welcome everybody. Thanks for showing up here on a Saturday evening. Great to see everybody. Um, I'm finally pretty much well now. Thank you to everybody who reached out. Someone had messaged me and was like, "I saw you were in the emergency room," and immediately assumed the worst. I was like, "No, I didn't mean to alarm anybody." But thank you to everybody who said a prayer. Everybody who reached out. Someone even said he would light a candle for me. So thank you. You know who you are. Much appreciated to everybody for the prayers and well wishes. So yeah, I'm ready to be done with these antibiotics. I have like 2 more days, I think. Ready to be done. But anyway, got a good stream for you today or tonight, I guess. Now or today, I don't know, whatever. We have an international audience here, so whatever time it is, wherever you are out there. So, I'm gonna bring in our guest. We have a guest joining us for this special Spooktober edition of episode 7 of Movies in the Minefield. So I'm very tired. So I'm gonna try. We're gonna do it live. I'm gonna try to get through this. I think he's got his blue light glasses on as well. Blue light glasses are essential. Yeah, y'all know him. He is our resident Don DeLeo expert over here. He is our Virginia bureau chief. Y'all learned on the last stream. He is a huge fan of the federal government. He thinks it should be expanded. Absolutely loves the federal government. And I don't know if y'all know this. This is brand new information that this is powerful information you're hearing for the first time. He also, his entire media career, he's modeled on two fantastic media figures that he has a lot of respect and admiration for. One of whom is the current reigning king of British media. One is the reigning king of American media, and he is, soon to ascend both the respective thrones in England and America. He is the heir apparent of his 2 biggest influences and inspirations, Geraldo Rivera and Piers Morgan. So welcome to the show, Bazed Analyzer.
That was the best line in The Wind.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is so we're going to be discussing the Profane and the Inane, as I call this. And we're going to be discussing The Wind, which is a film from 2018 that I enjoyed. I thought it was pretty good. I rewatched it this afternoon, revisited the film, and it was a lot darker and more trippy than I was texting BLA about this earlier. It's a lot darker and more trippy than I'd remembered. And so I still don't quite know what to make of it. I told him I'm still kind of fleshing out my take, and we're going to do it live because I honestly, I don't know. We're going to see what his take on it. So we're going to do that in the first half. And then in the second half, we are going to discuss. I actually was also texting BLA about this earlier. We're talking about The Happening, M. Night Shyamalan, however you say his last name's movie, his 8th movie.
Shamalama. Shamalama, ding dong.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Back into Massachusetts. Y'all know that song.
Yeah. This guy's made like 27 movies. And so we're going to be, his 8th was The Happening. Yeah, I was, if y'all have seen, we're going to jump on into this. I'm going to do too long of an intro, but if y'all have seen The Bonfire of the Vanities, which BLA and I actually did an analysis of that. So go check that one out. That was a really fun one. I think that was the first literary analysis we did over here. So great book, awful movie. And I thought that was, for the longest time, First Daughter, starring Katie Holmes, was the worst movie I'd ever seen. Then I saw The Bonfire of the Vanities, and I thought this is by far the worst movie I've ever seen. Then I saw The Happening.
I've never seen First Daughter.
I actually like Katie Holmes as an actress, but First Daughter is awful.
Oh, okay. Have you seen First Kid?
No.
Was Sinbad? Yeah, that was filmed in Richmond. 3 of my friends are extras in that movie. Yeah, Yeah,
Nice.
Sinbad lived in he lived in a house like in my neighborhood, and you know the notorious Sinbad bit that Norm tells, right? They were doing a show together, and they went to the store. Sinbad was like, "I got to go look for some socks," and so they went to the store, and he walked in, and he couldn't find any socks, and he was like, "Well, y'all ain't got no socks," and they were like, "No, we don't sell them here. This is a grocery store." So that night at the stand-up event, Norm, like, you know, went through his routine or whatever, very rehearsed early in his career. And then Sinbad got up and he goes, "What up with this town? They ain't got no socks." And like the place like exploded. Like it was just, he just killed it.
Nice. Yeah, Sinbad, that dude just
Sinbad is going from Sinbad to sin worse. Right. No, I like Sinbad. First Kid is okay. So one more thing. First Kid is a Disney flick, and the kid who plays the first kid, so he's the son of the president in the movie. He's like he like plays with computers and stuff. It's like early, you know, internet or whatever, early 90s. But that kid went on to be a presidential nominee. I think I don't know if it was the last one, maybe 2016 on the I think the Libertarian ticket, and he's a crypto zillionaire now.
Who is it?
And I forget his name. He's but he's associated with, you remember all the let's say Papa John's, Domino's gate stuff.
Yes.
Right. And there was a thing called like Digital Entertainment Network, and it was a thing, right? And it was these creeps in Hollywood. Well, he was like associated with them somehow, like he invested in them and they ripped him off. So something, he's tied to that. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Brock Pierce.
That's it. Yeah, he's the kid. He's the first kid. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I know who that guy is. I never saw the movie.
It's weird. I saw it like a few months ago because I saw it pop up and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this. And it's weird watching it because like all the extras in the background are like girls my age from private school. And like it's that thing about movies, like you watch the movie and like they're still the same age, right? That we were in whatever that was, like 5th grade or whatever. It's very weird. It's like a what do they call that? Uncanny valley or something with movies, right? You know, you're forever your age on celluloid. Very, very weird. But anyway, I wasn't interested in being an extra for that.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But my best friend is in it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. You were saying.
That's totally fine. I took a ton of notes on this. We're gonna kick it off with. Hopefully, we'll have a bunch of background noise there. We're gonna kick it off with The Wind here. Now, first
speaking of wind, can I ask you, Maddie? Do you is my like noise gate? Can you hear the fan when I click the mic? Yeah. You guys, is it annoying? Like, it's very loud here. There's nothing really I can do about it.
I don't hear anything.
Sorry. Look, we do it live. Right, we're professionals here, and Maddie's about to dive into Shyamalan Ding Dongs The Happening. And can I just say before you start that I recently covered a Shyamalan movie called Trap, right, with Josh Hartnett, his latest flick on the members channel over at my channel.
Nice.
So, yeah,
I missed that one. I'm going to go back and watch that one. So first off, what did you, obviously this is not a review channel, as we know, but what was your take on, what did you think about this movie?
Hey, where am I? Am I here? What's going on? Huh? What? Huh? That's Mark Wahlberg. The Happening is one of the, like, honestly, and I'm being fair here, like, it is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And it is so bad that we're talking about The Happening, right?
We're doing The Wind first, and then we're going to get into
Okay. The Wind. Well, there's The Wind, which is very hard to find, by the way, because when you go on the networks and you look up The Wind, it like you click on The Wind and it says, here's The Wind, but then it shows you the other side of The Wind, which is an Orson Welles like avant-garde movie. They mix the two up. So it's hard to find, but The Wind, there's also The Wind That Shakes the Barley. Anybody seen that Irish movie? The Wind, this one was an odd one in a lot of ways. I mean, my takeaway just, from the outset is that it reminded me immediately of this movie called The Nightingale that I came up recently, which is another movie about a you know, a woman alone, like in the wilderness, facing all sorts of, interior and exterior threats. That one was more like, actual physical threats. This one was existential, became spiritual, and it was a kind of a strange movie because it didn't really seem like it was going to go fully in that direction at first. And it was it was kind of like I watched this movie and I thought from the outset, okay, I can kind of predict what is going to be the narrative here. Which is, the emptiness of the outside wilderness, like, it's gonna drive her crazy. She's in isolation. But it had some twists in it. And I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was kind of a well done, fairly tight, like smaller movie. And it was a pretty good recommendation. And I especially appreciate this kind of recommendation because honestly, like, I've seen pretty much everything. And I hadn't even heard of this one. So, and I was surprised in a good way. So what do you
Yeah,
think? What was you're the expert on this one. What was your take?
yeah. I mean, I think it was pretty good. I enjoyed it overall. I mean, I think it's a fairly short movie. It's only an hour 27, so it's not very long. It's pretty tense, but they kept it tight. I mean, even though there were kind of some lengthy shots where there's like nothing, quote unquote, nothing happening, even though there is, it didn't feel like there's any wasted time. Like it was a pretty tight movie overall. I think that the
Nothing
filmmakers,
happening, huh?
I think the filmmakers, the director did a really good job. I thought the cast was, it's a small cast. I mean, there's not that many people. There's the main couple, there's the other couple, there's the Reverend, and I think
There's
that's
the
it.
wind. There's the wind.
The wind, yeah, there's
Yeah.
the wind, and that's pretty much it. So there's only like five people in the cast. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I thought it was overall pretty well done. I mean, there's kind of a horror-ish, kind of a thriller. There's kind of it's got elements of Western and supernatural, and I did think it was I don't say reminiscent because it came out before, but you can kind of see some parallels to an extent with Hereditary, which BLA and I did that one on his channel. If you haven't seen that one, it was a great stream. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, it leaves you with a lot of questions. So there are going to be spoilers in this, just so y'all know. We are going to spoil the movie. It was a pretty small movie. If you haven't seen it, well, okay, spoiler alert. I'm going to get that from the outset because we are going to talk about
it for you.
Yep. Yeah, we watched it for you. And this one, I mean, yeah, it's worth watching. I think it's very dark. I will say that, but I do think it is. If you're into that kind of thing, I think it is worth watching because it's not obvious. Whereas Hereditary, and I don't say this as a knock against Hereditary because I enjoyed the movie as much as you can enjoy a movie. Like, I didn't enjoy it in the same way that I enjoy, like a Caddyshack or Bram Stoker's Dracula or The Departed or something like that. But
yeah, rom-com.
Yeah, I mean, it was an enjoyable movie, but it was obvious what was happening. Like it was obvious from the outset. Some of the things you could see them coming. Daughter sticks her head out the window. Well, then they run into a telephone pole. She has a peanut or nut allergy. She eats something that has nuts in it. She's leaning out the window trying to breathe, gets her head taken off, right? So you can kind of see that coming, and it's obvious like there's something supernatural at work here. But in this one,
Peter, yeah. Get out! Oh my gosh!
I was going to try to make a Family Guy joke, but I couldn't think of any good lines.
That witch lady. Whenever I see her in anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just know that she's going to be sinister or, a witch or
the older blonde brunette lady.
Yeah. The one who does the gaslighting initiation into the Paimon thing. Yeah. Can I just say that you bring up some good points right there because there is a significant, I don't know if it's tradition or like through line with especially literary works about women, slowly losing their mind, like in isolation. And this kind of began with, I guess it began with Mary Shelley,
mm-hmm.
right? With Frankenstein in a way, because that's kind of a meta look at it because that's not in the That's not actually in the text, but just from knowing about how the book was constructed, how it was inspired, that's sort of her thing. And, then obviously it became a gothic sentiment, with and the Bronte sisters, the Moors, Wuthering Heights, the Tenant of Wildfell Hall, like the sort of late 19th century, like isolated women alone. Jane Eyre is like that. Wide Sargasso Sea that I covered, that's 20th century. That's kind of a prequel to Jane Eyre. And then like things like Virginia Woolf. I can't stand Virginia Woolf. I've never been able to like. Have you ever read any Virginia Woolf? To the Lighthouse or any of that stuff? Mrs.
No, no, I
Dalloway.
never have.
Yeah, it's awful. I had to read it when I was at university, and all I could think the whole time was that this lady, obviously reading her books, you can tell that she, unfortunately, wore those cinder block concrete shoes and took a swim one day, which is tried to swim to the lighthouse, I suppose. But that is what happened to Virginia Woolf, and it's just like this weird, this 20th century. One of the things that comes out of modernity, which is like this like overt unaliving, just like nihilism with especially with these female writers. The Yellow Wallpaper, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, if you've read that.
I was just thinking of that one. The first literature course I took in college, we read and discussed. I was just looking that up because I couldn't remember the title of it. But that's a great one. That's a
that one is
one.
That one always comes to mind weirdly because you always read it in literature classes, and I've taught it for years, and I really don't, I hate it. And once you've read it, one time, it's not like a puzzle to be figured out, but you just know that the wall, that this woman is going insane, and etc. But this movie was strange because it did have an element of Hereditary a little bit with the mother. I also thought of The Witch, that I just covered, because even though that's, East Coast Puritan, wilderness of the continent, this was like the West, the Wild West. And this one added this thing that has been popping up a lot recently, which is like this like phantasmagorical, like they're trying to make a folklore for the Wild West, like with demonic entities and stuff. Blood Meridian is like the peak, like great example of that, obviously, but that's like another level. But it's just, like there's a part where she finds a book and it's got a list of demons in it, and it's deliberate, like going down the list so that the viewer can see this list. But it's also like, when I'm watching, I'm like, do they earn all this stuff in the movie? And I kept thinking to myself, if I were there, if I were in her place and I had that cabin and it was just me and I'm a dude, I would be totally all right. Like, I think you would be all right. I would be all right. And this like landscape, big sky. And I'm like, dude, that looks so peaceful. Why do they always lose it when they're like this? Yeah, the wind is howling, but like, it's just wind, right? There's coyotes and wolves and stuff, but it's like, yeah, but she's got a gun and, like, get yourself together, lady. But I think in a way that's truthful.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think that another interesting one that I just wanted to mention even though this was not explicitly a spiritual tale, I don't know if you've read Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, but that one, I actually think that actually fits into what you were talking about of kind of the Western, sort of American Western lore, with the demonic. Because if you go back and read, like, any kind of the classic Western, like Zane Grey or Louis L'Amour, you had your good guys and your bad guys, but then in Lonesome Dove, the character of Blue Duck is just like, I think he's demonic. I think he is a sort of demon character because like there's violence all over the place, but this guy is like so over the top, so far beyond just like sadistic brutality against other humans. And so I think in and not to get off on a tangent about that, but I do think that's another one that fits pretty firmly in, even though there's really very little to no spiritual component to that book. I mean, but I think Blue Duck is pretty obviously a sort of demonic kind of figure, and perhaps even is like, I don't want to say he is a demon, but he is a sort of demon-like figure. But
Yeah, I don't know Lonesome Dove. I mean, I've never read it. It was in my granddad's library. I think
It's
that's one
good.
of
It's
the
worth reading.
he had every Louis L'Amour book. And so I'm like aware of the lore and stuff. Blue Duck is an interesting name for a sadistic villain.
Yeah,
Huh.
it was interesting because he's native, and you know they often have like names that relate to animals. But the blue duck, I don't know what to make of that because that's a pretty odd kind of name.
We found the body. Her skull was quacked. That's so bad.
Okay, so the wind. This one took me. This one jumps around, and it took me a minute to figure out what was. I couldn't remember what was going on with the timeline because the timeline is somewhat unclear. It's not not. I mean, it's non-linear, but it's not non-linear in the sense of like a Quentin Tarantino movie where he just like throws all sense of linear timeline to the wind. It's more it sort of serves to bolster this kind of idea of madness of where like you don't know what day it is, what's happening, when you sort of lose track of everything. So you're
Right.
almost kind of going insane along with the protagonist of the film.
Yeah, it's interesting because usually when that happens in a film, like if that had happened with The Thing, right, where
Hmm.
they're in kind of the night country. We covered night country, right? True
Hmm.
Detective night country. There's no sun, so you lose track of time. I read something about I don't know if this was real about like some experiment where some dude went into some was it like an underground pod or something in the 70s, and he was down there for so like a long period of time, like I think 2 years or something. And what they one of the points of data that came out of it was that his sense of time like totally it like doubled.
Hmm.
So he was doing like 48-hour days and then he would sleep for like 12 hours because there was no sunlight. He had no sense of time at all. And I say that because like with this movie, sometimes with movies like that, when a person loses their mind, you see a lot of scenes where they're sleeping and
Hmm.
they lose track of the days and stuff. And I always notice sleeping scenes in films because it's interesting to me that they take up screen time showing people sleep. And she
Hmm.
does that in the movie. And you're right, like you kind of lose your bearings, just like the landscape. Like she sees this point far off with like the light in the other cabin or whatever. But really there's nothing else to like hold on to let her know that like she's still alive and real at times.
Hmm.
And with the wind, the wind howling at her, which I guess is foreshadowed by those wolves that she
Yeah.
encounters outside, which by the way aren't wolves, they're just like huskies.
Hmm.
They
Yeah, I
always
know
do
that was
that.
like those are too small to
Yeah.
be even. They're not even wolf dogs. They're too small because wolves are huge. I don't know if
Yeah.
people realize. Maybe people do. I don't. I didn't realize till a few years ago like how big wolves actually are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Teen
yeah,
Wolf, great example.
yeah.
No. Um,
But
want a case of beer. You guys remember Teen Wolf?
great
No,
movie.
all right, I got a question for you. Her
Hmm.
like she's got a weapon, right?
Hmm.
She's got a, side by side like flintlock shotgun or something.
Hmm.
But it's not a shotgun. She like remember when she was loading it and she like drops a ball into it and that's it? Is that it?
Oh, maybe I
Yeah.
thought I think so. I don't know what kind of gun that was supposed to be. Yeah, because it was a double barrel, so it seems like it would be a shotgun. But yeah,
Circle G will
it
know.
was loaded differently than you
Yeah.
would think.
Circle G, you're the expert. Put in the chat here. What kind of well, actually, no, we've seen the film.
I don't know if you've seen it or not. Circle G, if you've seen the film, let us know
Yeah.
what kind of gun
Because what's the
she had.
time period? When is this set?
See, that's what's unclear. It's never said when it's set, and we don't know where. We know it's somewhere west of Missouri and Illinois. We
Hmm.
know that, but we don't know where, and we don't know when. So I'm
Spoiler, she's dead the whole time. No, I'm just kidding. But that is that's the one cardinal sin, like in literature and film, that you
yeah,
can't do.
right,
It was all a dream.
yeah.
But it is kind of like
Um,
that.
yeah, and it is, and that's we're gonna get to the end, and that's what I'm still trying to figure out. It's very confusing. So the movie starts on. It's like it. Sometimes it's hard to tell if it's dawn or dusk, but it's at some point where the sun's either about to come up or about to go down, and we see these two guys standing outside of a cabin, and then this woman steps out. She's wearing a white kind of dress type of thing, covered in blood, looks sort of dazed, and is holding something that's obviously a baby in like blankets, like in a white blanket, covered in blood. And the first thing we hear is the wind howling. That's the first, because it's silent when the movie's kind of coming in, and then she opens the door and is kind of standing there in a daze. And then it cuts to her in this wash tub, and she's like aggressively scrubbing her body, and it's clean, like there's nothing on her, but it's like she can't stop scrubbing what she's doing. Then her husband comes in, and she's staring at the gun. He like leans the gun up against the table, this double-barreled gun we were just talking about. Okay, Circle G said he saw screenshots, said it's an old school muzzle-loaded shotgun. Thank you, Circle G. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
And so, yeah, and then it cuts, it's like cuts back and forth. So it cuts to her then putting a baby in this coffin with a woman who's like missing part of like a quarter of her skull. And then Lizzie says she had my gun, which leads us to believe that this dead woman shot herself and her baby. What we then find out, because her husband Isaac, Lizzie is the main character, the protagonist, and her husband Isaac, he says that Gideon, who's the dead woman's husband, he said he's selling and he's moving back to Illinois. So Isaac's gonna go off, I guess, with him, see him off, get some supplies for town, and Lizzie asks him. She said, Lizzie says, "How did she get my gun?" And Isaac just responds, "You have to keep your wits about you." And
which implied to me on the first watch, by the way, that she did not have it, and that it was her.
Mm-hmm.
She did this.
Yeah.
Also, Lizzie, I think of, like, who was the axe woman? Lizzie Borden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then obviously the biblical names. And whenever I see a woman who I assume is going to go crazy in a film and who's washing, especially when she's washing clothes like full of blood, I inevitably think of who? Chat, who do I think of? Give me the literary reference. What famous woman in literature can't get the spot out? Who is it? Who is it, chat? Ding, ding. Lady Macbeth, of course, right? Out damn spot.
Right.
Because she's she begins the work by being sane and then loses her mind throughout, which it mirrors this movie in a number of ways. So
that's a good catch. Yeah, I'm not up on my Shakespeare, but no, that's a very good catch.
Why does he say the dude's her husband? Is Isaac her husband?
Isaac's her husband, yeah.
And he says you got to keep your wits about you, but what is he doing? Why he always gone?
That's never explained, because he'll just disappear for extended periods of time. Like in that case, we know he was going to town, I guess, to see Gideon off and to get supplies. But yeah, he'll just disappear for days on end, and we don't know why. It's never.
Yeah,
it's
I
never
gotta go. I gotta go get some St. Ives. I'll be right back, and then disappears for like 3 years.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things is that the wind blows kind of as an uncomfortable speed nonstop, like throughout the movie, and it shows it's like blowing things. There's like creakings. It's blowing part of a fence, or it's blowing, different things around.
Yeah, I started to think, how did they construct this whole like homestead with the wind blowing like that? Because they must do it all the time. And if so, why would they? Why would they put their house right there in the open? That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either, because there's like a bluff or something back off a ways. It's like, why didn't you?
Yeah.
Couldn't that blow? I mean, I guess it depends on which direction the wind's coming from, but maybe that.
Why not put it up against near a stream, right? Or was this like is this Tom Cruise Far and Away universe where they were like, remember that movie?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Run, go get your land, and they just run, and then they like stake a claim. That's crazy.
Like, this is mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, we then find out that because it keeps kind of cutting back and forth in these scenes. So this dead woman, who we later find out is named Emma, She killed herself while pregnant, so it seemed that she had this baby and then shot herself. But no, I don't even know if I can say this, but we'll just say that Lizzie had to take a fixed blade knife and get the baby.
She had to do a Macbeth.
Yeah.
Right. I was from my mother's womb untimely ripped.
Yeah. Very good catch. Yeah. This is yeah. So that's a pretty traumatic kind of thing. So then Lizzie's outside doing laundry, and these wolves appear. It's daylight, but it's nearing dusk. She's hanging up laundry. She gets chased into her house. The wolves begin to break through the door. She beats one of them with a metal object. Its head comes through the door, and then she shoots through the door at them. Now, you mentioned the wolves earlier, and I don't know. You know a lot more about symbolism and things than I do. Do you know if there's any kind of symbolism in literature or in any kind of tradition of like the wolves? Are they like a harbinger of something, or what does it mean anything when wolves
Well, the
show up?
question is, who let the dogs out? And she, she beats it with a ladle inside, which is like, are these real? Right? Because she's doing the washing, and then we see the landscape, then we see the clothes, right? And then we, white linen, translucent, and then she looks again, and then there's two wolves, or huskies, growling at her, which the whole thing was so unbelievable, like so unrealistic. Broad daylight, like two wolves coming to chase her down at the house. I thought these are some sort of like these are psychopomps or some sort of Odin sent his two, what is it? What's the what's the
Ravens.
region? Yeah, he's got two ravens and two wolves, right? Ted Hughes is the best example of writing about wolves. And I covered an Elizabethan play called by John Webster called The Duchess of Malfi, which has lycanthropy in it, werewolfism. But in this film, it's just like, these are some sort of exterior harbinger of her hellish, like the hellish future that she's going to encounter, right? Where she takes sanctuary inside of her cabin alone, and then shoots she's continuously shooting through the doors and the walls, like at things outside.
Right.
And I kept thinking, like, the more you do this, the more you're letting the damn wind into the house. And obviously, you're shooting through, you're trying to break through your psyche in some way. And it's just making it worse. So, the wolves go away, and then that's replaced by something else, and it gets continuously worse.
Yeah, it's kind of an escalation. I mean, the thing with the wolves, that was very unrealistic because, I mean, excuse me, wolves. For one, if you're, it's very rare for wolves to attack humans. Wolves will generally avoid humans. Generally the only time it happens is when they're starving, which you would think out there, like on the prairie, when there's no one there, they're not going to be like competing for food or resources. They're going to have the lay of the land. So they wouldn't attack out of starvation. Also, there probably wouldn't just be two of them, because wolves are pack animals. You think it'd be a whole pack. And then, or if they're rabid. And I think that's probably, I mean, maybe, but again, are the wolves even there? We don't know.
These were some sort of spirits. Yeah,
I
these were
think
spirits. Because if they were wolves, they'd be grabbing the chickens. Like, she's got chickens and a goat and sheep, all this stuff. I forgot. I also covered The Gray, Liam Neeson, right, where they get that's the enemy in that one. There's plenty of wind and weather in that one, but there's the plane crash there in Alaska. He's a wolf. He's a wolf hunter, and he's going up against the alpha wolf. So the wolves and the humans are like mirroring each other in this like weird naturalistic struggle. This one doesn't have any of that. And it's when you watch a movie, like any movie, and you go, okay, that's not realistic. I mean, that's fine to say that, usually, but it depends, because sometimes, like, movies, these types of scenes don't have to be realistic or naturalistic.
Exactly.
They're purely symbolic or whatever. An example of where that doesn't work at all, the entire movie, is Megalopolis, which I'm not going to really talk about because I'm going to do a whole stream on it, but it is the worst piece of shit I've ever seen in my life. And I kept trying to figure out there's got to be context for this stuff in some way, but I've never seen a movie where like the symbolism and the analysis is the movie, like that's on the surface somehow. And so that's like the kind of polar opposite to this movie. But a film like this, obviously, you know, when you have a sole character who's alone in isolation, you kind of know where it's going. But the question is like, how are they going to deal with stuff? And are they going to realize that the exterior things are their inner demons, or are these like actual, you know, demons that she's dealing with, which I think is kind of ambiguous in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like, how are they going to get there? Like, you know where it's going, but what's going to get you there? And so, yeah, so her husband Isaac returns, tells her they have new neighbors, and he says that they are funny and nervous. So then they have the Gideon and Emma are the neighbors. They have them over for supper, and Emma asks Lizzie if there are any churches around. She says, no, there's not enough people. And I think she said something like, well, how many people are? She's like, well, now there's 4. So there's only 4 people. Like, it's just those two couples. And so, yeah, so then Lizzie steps. So it kind of jumps around because it'll be like, oh, here's something happening at night, and then boom, it's morning or something. It's another time. So
right.
Then Lizzie steps outside and she sees this white goat dead, and its side is like ripped out. Its ribs are exposed. There are flies all over. We talked about flies in the Hereditary stream, and kind of when those appear, it's something gross. It's something decomposing. It's something, they're kind of like a
Beelzebub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like something.
John Malkovich and Con Air. The last thing you'll see is the flies buzzing around your rotting corpses.
Classic.
Yeah, but also the night scene that precedes this, when she looks out and she sees like that light in the house far away. My thought would be like, oh, I got neighbors. All right, sweet. You know, hers is that I think this is supposed to bring to mind something like some sort of like Great Gatsby type of analogy here, right? With an East egg and a West egg, like 2 different universes separated by an abyss. And that's kind of, in a way, that's kind of what we get, because we meet this other couple and they seem to have a different, not tone, but kind of when we first meet the other woman, Emma, like she seems more upbeat, more, you know, happier. I don't know how, because they're all the ladies are walking around with these like heeled shoes. Did you notice that? Their boots? I was like, damn, why are they walking around this uncomfortable ass Victorian clothes?
Yeah, that was kind of strange. I'm like, why are you wearing like high? That's probably not. I mean, I guess we could. This is sometime maybe mid 1800s. I don't.
I mean, haven't they ever heard of Uggs?
Why aren't you wearing wellies? But yeah, it's and there's an interesting thing where they're eating, and Gideon says that he says something to Lizzie like, "Oh, you're gonna have to teach something to the effect of, you're gonna have to teach Emma how to cook so we can actually have something edible." And Emma's kind of like offended and shocked by this.
They also, like, she's teaching her how to like dig up things in the garden, in the dust garden, whatever. She's digging up some fucking dust vegetables. And when she goes to get the water for the men, right, she's like, I got to go water the stallions or whatever. And and the girl's like, make sure you bring some for me. And then she watches her, and like I think it's implied that her husband kind of, you know, he's like, damn, she got kind of a fine ass. Her husband is kind of checking the other lady out, which he's not really doing. He's just taking the water. But
well, she holds the cup up to Isaac. So Emma holds the cup up to Isaac, Lizzie's husband, up, like holds it up for him, and then just hands the cup to her husband. We can clearly see Lizzie gets jealous about this.
Yeah, she's like, take a sip of this water. I'm gonna watch you drink it from this ladle. Yeah.
And then Emma asks Lizzie and Isaac if they have children, and Lizzie says, "Oh, well, we had a son." And then Isaac kind of cuts in. He said it wasn't the Lord's will. So there's clearly something happened here. We don't know what, and we death is a obviously. I mean, the movie opens with like a horrific. It's not. There's not much shown. Like a lot of the actual death isn't shown, but the aftermath, or it's implied. You know what?
The aftermath is bad enough, right? With the screaming and the blood everywhere. But it is refreshing to see a film like where, you know, they at least reference religion in some way. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
What if she said, you know, yeah, we got a kid, and then like the feral kid from Mad Max Thunderdome shows up. He's got like the goat intestines in his mouth.
Right. He's the one that killed the goat, the white goat outside. Just like ate its side off.
We call him Goat Boy.
Yeah. They call me Goat Boy. They call me the Night Master. They call me Go-Go Nuts. They call me the Silver Bullet. Anyway, but so there's a scene where, yeah, like you mentioned, they're looking out at this kind of Gatsbyan, it's like the light across this dark expanse. And so Lizzie's from Germany originally. She said she was brought to the U.S. as a child. And so they came from St. Louis, and so she said she mentions to Isaac, she said, oh, you know, in the city you can remain strangers, but here we don't have that luxury, right? It's kind of like that Gatsbyan idea of like, oh, you know, I like big parties because there's no privacy at small parties, right? And so you can kind of be in this crowd, you can be in the hustle and bustle of the city, and it's like you don't know anybody, nobody knows you, people are doing their thing. But when it's literally you, and then, you know, not even like a mile away there's another couple, and there's nobody else for miles and miles around, it's not like you can just kind of go off, especially in that kind of hard scrabble homesteading kind of environment. You can't just go off and be like, man, I'm going to do my own thing, because people will be like, oh, there's somebody over there. It's not like, you know, in a city where there's people everywhere.
Is that why when she said she was German, the other girl said, yeah, you kind of remind me of someone I know. And she said, don't compare me to that name. Don't you dare. Those hypnotic eyes. I know. But it's interesting. They continuously reference like the contrast like with the city, you know, and Illinois, you know, Chicago and St. Louis, right? The gateway to the West.
Yep.
Whenever people mention Chicago, like in 19th century things, I always think of that guy, H.H. Holmes, the Devil in the White City.
Yeah. The guy who would like hire contractors to work on his house and then would fire them after like a month and then hire new people so they wouldn't know the extent of what he was doing. That guy was wild.
Yeah, he built a murder labyrinth. He built a house with like he basically built the compound that they said Bin Laden had with the false walls and everything. If anybody's read that book, Devil in the White City, you know, it's pretty popular, and they were going to make a film of it with Leo. I knew they wouldn't follow through with that, but the book is kind of annoying because there's like two parallel narratives, and I didn't care at all about the Chicago the
World's Fair.
Yeah, I didn't care at all about that. Yeah, I mean, I was like, just, dude, get to the creep and what he's doing.
Yeah,
because they suspected him, by the way, of being Jack the Ripper.
The
same dude. They claim to have found the identity of the real Jack the Ripper. I'm not sure I trust it, though.
I don't believe it. I can't remember who it was. Did they ever say who it was? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's one of the guys that they had as a suspect for a long time. He was an immigrant, and he was confirmed in the Masonic Lodge.
That's right.
Because it had the whole, you know, the Masonic writing and all that stuff. But I'm not sure that they're like, we did the DNA test on his dog's cousin, so obviously, you know, it's confirmed.
We looked at the data.
We looked at the data.
So Lizzie, the thing, she has the shotgun continuously, and she sleeps with it across her. Like she'll be laying down in bed and wake up and have this shotgun, and so Emma obviously is interested in Isaac, or so we're led to believe. I could add that caveat, like, oh, we're led to believe. Again, we kind of have to go with you know what we can figure out with this. So we're led to believe that she kind of is interested in Isaac, and she says like, oh, well, you know, Gideon, like her husband. She's like, well, he isn't strong like Isaac, and you. And because there's a part earlier, like where she compliments Lizzie and Isaac's furniture, and she's like, oh yeah, Isaac built all of it, and she said something like, oh, you know, like, oh, my dad, he built all our furniture, and is basically saying like Gideon's a loser and can't do anything, and is kind of incompetent. And so,
oh, my husband builds his Funko Pops, little poppets.
And Star Wars Lego sets.
Yeah, you wonder where all this stuff comes from when they get to like when they have cabins and these pioneers like that, where the furniture,
because there's no trees around.
Yeah, there's just nothing.
Yeah, that's So then Emma says to Lizzie, she's like, "This land is funny. It plays tricks on your mind." And we see that because this goat that just a few scenes ago was laying, covered in flies with its side ripped out, suddenly reappears alive and intact. And it's just kind of, standing there like goats do, just staring at Lizzie. So she freaks out. She grabs the shotgun and then she shoots it. And so it's like, well, okay, is that again? So we're messing with time here. Is that? And I don't think it's literally messing with time in the sense that they're saying like, oh, this is, it's not like a time warp kind of thing. It's
Time blindness.
yeah, it's like
Dissociation.
dissociate. Right, that's what I was looking for. So it's not like actually messing with time itself. We're not in like Star Trek or what. I don't know if they go through time in Star Trek.
What's that damn Leo movie where they mess with time?
Inception.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. And so
it's like Deception.
We were deceived that this is supposed to be a good movie. No, I was fine. But so then it's like, well, did Lizzie shoot it already? Like, where did the wound come from? Because we don't know. And it doesn't actually show the goat being shot. So we don't know where the goat got, like where on its body it got shot. So anyway, then Gideon shows up at Lizzie and Isaac's door in the middle of the night. He's like beating on the door and he says Emma is unwell. So Isaac and Lizzie go over and Lizzie's like, well, let me just go in by myself. So
she's taken poorly. Yeah, she's taken poorly. Hey, you're also a crazy woman. Like you can help with this. Like you know what to do. Also, Isaac and the goat, right? Just religious implications with Isaac and the goat. Somehow, is that right?
Yeah. Because Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, and then there was the goat that, or I think it was a ram or a goat, or maybe it was a ram that appeared with its horns caught.
I'm not sure it's totally accurate, but hey, you at least think of this, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, then Gideon tells her it's not that kind of sickness. So Lizzie goes in by herself. Emma's under the bed, and she's repeating something. We can't tell what it is. And then Lizzie gets closer, and she says, "It's coming for me." She's just saying over and over, "It's coming for me." And then she says, "This place is wrong. We're not supposed to be here. And now it wants my baby." So Lizzie's like, "No, like you're just exhausted. You need to get some rest." And Lizzie says Emma says, "I can't rest because it's coming for me." So then Lizzie goes out to her horse, gets this thing out of her saddlebag, goes back in. It's apparently chloroform, and chloroforms Emma and knocks her out. And she tells Gideon to pull her from under the bed and tie her to it.
She roofies herself at one point.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, later on she does. Yeah, she chloroforms herself.
My question was, if they've got that, then where's the laudanum? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And is that the kind of sickness she had? Right. She was getting lit out there.
That's true. Yeah, she's probably just like whacked out and talking to I don't know, Dracula or something.
Oh, you've got a splinter, young pioneer.
Yeah,
how about some laudanum?
Have a gallon of laudanum.
What a time.
And here's a fifth of absinthe to go with it. Enjoy. So then Lizzie is she's later on reading to Emma from the Mysteries of Udolpho. Are you familiar with this book? I'd never heard of it. Okay. Well, I don't know if it's a real book. I'm guessing it was.
I think it is because they also, I think Frankenstein pops up at one point. So there's obviously, a gothic, like a gothic context to all this, which is weird because there's nothing gothic, like in terms of the visual aspect of the film. It's kind of thrown into this, but that's sort of the point of the film. Also, I guess we're supposed to think, well, they came from somewhere. So they came from, back east. The one lady, was she born in Germany?
Yeah, Lizzie says was brought here as a child.
Right. So she came from Germany, which is where, there's Frankenstein aspects to the Germanic parts of Frankenstein. But that's about it. Yeah. And I don't know Udolpho. I don't know that one.
Okay. Yeah. I figured it was a real book, but I wasn't sure.
It ought to be out there reading their Bible. They need to take that demon book away and just,
Yeah, and that's what comes up next because Emma tells Lizzie, like, "Oh, I've heard something whispering. I've seen and heard something whispering at night." She remarks on like, "Oh, on the way out here, look how many graves we passed." And it flashes back and there's just graves everywhere on this road out there. And so then she pulls out this pamphlet called Demons of the Prairie.
That's not good.
No, it's not good at all. It's got that kind of like
Imagine the
old
guy who wrote this and was like giving it to the women before they went out west. Right?
right.
That guy was a real jerk.
Yeah, that guy was like, here, let's have this book of demons. So
That
anyway, I
was
don't want to
Judge
spend
Holden from Blood Meridian. Right.
yeah,
He was the
right.
one doing that. Yeah, yeah. But
Um,
of course, I think that part of the film though is there's some truth in that though. You know, that first of all, the ladies are interested in true crime and the occult.
mhm.
It takes up time. It's something to read. It's interesting. It occupies their mind. But then the way that the natural elements start to make them sort of, you know, hallucinate, at least in an auditory sense. I mean, that's probably there's a lot of truth to that. Have you ever been in a place where something like in the landscape like seemed like things started to warp it, or it was weird, or you started to see things? Have you ever done that?
Um, Not to like a great extent, but like sometimes I've been out in the woods like at
Mm,
night,
mm.
and sometimes that can kind of mess with because if your eyes adjust and it's like wait, you know, you kind of become hyper aware of everything you're hearing, and then you know you it sort of it can kind of in certain circumstances it can kind of mess with your head in the sense
So my
of
tactics worked.
yeah
You think the darkness is your friend, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, Blair Witch, right?
yeah
Hearing
yeah
things, hearing screams and all that stuff. That movie freaked me out, by the way, when I saw it. I totally like I was freaked out by it. Um, the one time when that happened to me was I was on this peyote trip with this friend Chavez Eshop. No. I was in I was in Switzerland and that did that to me. And it was in broad daylight in the middle of the day, and I was walking from one town to the next, and the mountains, like the Alps, like where I was, the mountain, like just they kind of just rise out of the grass,
hmm
and they're so big, and the rocks, there's so much like rock face that like you're walking for so long that you can't help but look at the rocks in the mountainside, and like you start to kind of see things in the face of the mountains, like,
mm,
and you know that that's happening to you. You know, it's not like, you know, you're tripping or something, but it is kind of weirdly, um it has some sort of like phantasmagorical effect on you where, you know, it must do that to everyone who like goes this way. So I think with this movie, it's like with the emptiness of the landscape, like there's no markers, there's no trees, there's like
hmm
one tree, right? There's no
yeah
valleys, there's just distance and, you know, prairie, like gray. So the auditory hallucination starts to compensate for that. And the wind, you know,
hmm
screaming through the shutters or whatever. Like, you know, I don't blame the lady.
yeah. I mean, you can certainly see how someone could you know go nuts being out
Yeah.
there. I will say, actually, one other time that did happen where things got kind of weird landscape wise. I was outside during not like a full blown tropical storm, but like a very mild one that came inland several years ago, and I was outside and. I'd had this was in the bad old days, and I'd had several drinks, and it was like you know the wind was up in the trees, like blowing around, and I went outside of the house I was living in at the time, and like it was dark, you know, it was at night, and the rain's like just pouring, and I was out there with an umbrella, and I was in a place I'd lived, you know, for years, and I was looking around, and I was just like, what? This is so weird. That could have been the you know the drinks, but
That
anyway.
was Katrina. That was Katrina.
Yes, I was actually on the roof of the Superdome with Chris
Yeah.
Kyle, and I was like, "Chris, don't shoot those people." Uh, and then Jesse
You know,
Ventura showed up, and he
listen,
anyway.
I was in New Orleans, right? Bud's underwater demolition services in New Orleans. I was in the Baja. You know, four people unfortunately passed away in the Superdome during that.
hmm
You know, one of them was an OD,
Yeah, yeah.
and another one was an unaliving. And I guess the other two were like the roof fell on them or something. Unfortunate. We don't like that.
No, it's
Um,
terrible.
yeah, but isn't that crazy?
It was a wild situation.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we're gonna kind of move through some of this quickly. I mean, that Lizzie then becomes pregnant. Um, she's kind of you know rubbing her abdomen, singing in German. Kind of it sounds like a lullaby. She hears a knocking on the door, walks outside. There's nothing there. So she goes back in, and then the weird thing is we can't really hear the wind inside, but then when she opens the door, the wind is just like howling and whipping across the prairie. So she goes back inside, and then it sits back down, and here's the knocking again, goes out, and it's just like howling and whipping. So then she gets on her knees, starts praying, trying to light a match, and the matches keep going out. So then the wood bursts into flames, the door flies open, and then it just cuts to dawn at what seems to be the next day, the next morning. And Isaac comes home, and Lily's like up in this kind of not attic, but loft, and is like in a trance. She's just repeating some phrase in German. I don't speak or understand, or I can't read or speak or understand German, so I don't know what she's saying. But she's saying something in German, and he kind of like shakes her out of it. She tells him what she saw was real. Isaac grabs this Demons of the Prairie pamphlet, throws it in the fire, gives Lizzie the shotgun, says, "The next demon you think you see, shoot it." So this is now her gun, right?
Yeah, that's not good.
No, not good at all. So then Lizzie tears apart a pillow, because there's another scene. It's like later sometime. It's dark, and she's like ripping this feather pillow apart, and is like, saying, "What do you want from me? What must I do to be rid of you?" And then she starts to wail, and the bed starts to shake. Books are falling off of shelves. And then everything just suddenly stops. So then later on, sometime, Lizzie's, reading from this notebook, and then a ghostly looking Emma appears and says, "Lizzie, where's your gun?" She grabs her wrist, and then Lizzie faints. So then it cuts to, there's a lot of cuts, right, in this, but
Right.
it sounds weird, but it actually works when you see it. So then,
well, the cuts are pretty seamless. I mean,
mm-hmm.
And subtle, and they're obviously supposed to. I thought it was kind of obvious that they're supposed to indicate or convey like breaks in her psyche or in her
Yes.
like consciousness, or that's when she dissociates. And I thought that it was actually, they did the ghostly woman appearances pretty well, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not like she's like, oh, it's like she appears like she's real, and so we're supposed to question, like, is this woman real?
Yeah.
She's seeing her like as if she's real. Also, the wind, I just realized, the wind blowing through the house like that is, you mentioned Hereditary. I mean, demons of the wind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in Hereditary, how it's Paimon is like the demon of the northwest wind or whatever. But you wonder whether, like, her being thrown against the wall and collapsing on the table and all this stuff, is that really happening, or is that what we're seeing, like, that's going on inside her mind?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of. I made some notes on this at the end. We'll get to, but it becomes difficult to distinguish: is this actual demons, or is this mental illness? Is this postpartum psychosis? And I'll just go ahead and skip to this at the end. I mean, I kind of made some notes after my last notes on the film, where I was just kind of writing things down with question marks. I was like, postpartum psychosis, possession, insanity, cabin fever, grief-induced psychosis, which is a real thing. It's rare, but because we see that. So anyway, I guess to skip ahead here.
What do you think it is?
I'm actually going to wait to answer that question, because I'm going to talk through the rest of it and then see if I can come, because I'm still trying to figure out where I land on this, and I'm interested to get your takes on some of this, and so then to maybe hopefully arrive at some kind of conclusion, because to hit some of the other big points on here. So then it cuts to Emma's laying in bed resting, and she's rattling off the names and roles of demons. Like, we'll say the name of a demon is like, oh, this is, like provoker of jealous thoughts, demon, whatever demon name, digger of graves, right? And this is something that is, I mean, it's I've always, like, I'm not interested in like reading about demons or something like that. That's, and this, I'm not saying this is, I'm not bashing Protestants here, but this is kind of, you see the sort of studying of demons. This is something And it's not like prevalent in Protestantism, but this is something you might see in Protestantism where people will look at like, oh, these actual demons like that have names and certain things. And, you know, being Orthodox, there's kind of a different understanding of demons and how that works. And it's, like I said, it's nothing I've ever been interested in studying, because this is something you also see in the occult a lot, right? People will kind of study demons and try to learn their names and what they do. But it's always like, don't worry, don't get in to that. Don't, and I would advise, but this is not spiritual advice. Okay, I'm not your priest, I'm not your pastor, but I would say don't go around.
You are my guru, though.
Yeah, I am. Yes, I am a guru. That, but I would just say like don't go. I would advise people not to go studying up on demons. Like, don't go be like, oh, Paimon, like what does he do? You know, it just it doesn't lead anywhere good. So
well, the danger with that is that you get so interested in it, and you know, you get on these rabbit holes because it's interesting to read, that you find yourself like in a dark place just from the reading material. And that kind of happens in the movie because what you just mentioned a couple minutes ago, when she speaks out to the demon and asks it, like, what do I have to do to be rid of you? That's like, first of all, don't communicate, don't ask. And like, if it's a demon, if it's a physical, you know, if it's an actual demon there, then why would it tell you what you need to do to be rid of it?
Right.
Unless it's that kind of happens in Goethe's Faust. Maybe she's quoting Goethe. She's German.
Could be, yeah. That
probably,
would,
yeah. I don't know.
And
She also could be just quoting some German techno songs. So, you know.
Well, there's also something I made a note of. I didn't mention earlier. There's a scene towards the beginning where there's like scratches in the door, and Lizzie's kind of like running her fingers along these scratches, and it seems to be implied that that's from the Huskies, right? But it's like, what is this actually from the Huskies? Is this from a demon? Because that's kind of a thing that it's almost like a stereotype thing of, you know, where you'll like, oh, you know, spirits leaving scratches on floors and whatever. But that's something in one of the Crucible did some great streams several years ago on demons, and not like in a oh, let's study, you know, Paimon and Baal and whoever, but it was sort of kind of like rightly understanding them, and Father Deacon Ananias Sorum was on there, and that was so I always thought that was just like a Hollywood thing, but he was like, no, like that's actually a real thing, and like that's an extreme kind of case of, you know, of seeing scratches, and so it's clearly not her, like something. We don't think it was her, we don't know, but something made those scratches. Like it seems, I thought that wasn't one of those things where it's kind of up to interpretation on if that was actual scratches. Like those were actually real. They were really there in the door.
There's some famous folklore in England about the black dog. Led Zeppelin sings the song about the black dog. There's a town where they still have like the door, that like the inside of the church door has like scratches on it from the black dog. Like 300 years ago, everybody had to run inside the church or something like that because there was a black dog killing people outside. I think it was like an actual black wolf or something like that. And then also remember that when she goes to get the crazy woman out from under the bed, doesn't she get scratched in the face?
Yes, that's true. Yeah. She like hits her she like scratches her on the lip and Lizzie's trying to get Emma right before she chloroforms her.
Yeah. Being scratched is not, that's awful.
Yeah. I'm sure. I don't know if I've ever actually been scratched by a dog on accident one time. That actually does not feel good. Like my friend's dog was doing, I don't remember what happened. I think I was like handing her a toy or something, and she jumped up to grab it and like scratched my arm. And it's, even just from a dog, it does not feel good. It's quite painful. So anyway,
you were in a secret ring of dog scratching before you became a streamer, right?
Yes.
You put on a dog costume and you had claws, right? And it was with other fellow dog people.
It was a fight club, but it was like, this is dog club, and you dress up like a dog and you put on claws, and then it was basically because dog fighting is illegal. And so
remember Crucible had that dog person. Remember Crucible had that dog like on the leash. I brought on like a human dog.
No, I missed that one. That is bizarre, though.
Yes.
I don't even want to know. So then Emma is she says she's naming she tells Lizzie, she's like, well, ask, like, what do you think I'm going to name the baby? You get 3 guesses for a boy's name, 3 if it's a girl. She guesses something. She's like, no, like, come on. And she's like, it's the, you get 2 guesses and it's the people who are in this room. And she was like,
Oh.
Emma. And she's like, no. And she was like, oh, she's
Caligula?
Calig
No.
Diocletian?
Diocletian?
Nero?
Scheherazade? Alizé? Mr. Pinecones?
Saladin?
John Pinecones.
John Pinecones.
Thrusting loincloth?
Jolando Belushi. That was a deep cut. But yeah, so, and then she says if it's a girl, she's going to name her Elizabeth. And if she's going to name him Isaac if it's a boy. So then Lizzie, there was something I was going to mention. Where is this? Oh, yeah. So then Lizzie wakes up on the floor. Her house is trashed. There's like feathers everywhere. So then it seems to harken back to where she was tearing apart that the pillow. And so then Lizzie's reading Emma's diary, and Emma claims in there that the baby that she has is not Gideon's, it's actually Isaac's. And so one of the things that she kept mentioning, the 2 demons, I don't remember their names, I didn't pay that close attention to the names, but the demons that Emma kept reading about, she kept saying their names and then what they do over and over. The one she was reading was the ones of jealous, like the provoker of jealous feelings, or whatever it was, and then the digger of graves. And so she's clearly, whether, is Emma possessed, we don't know. Is she being influenced by demons? We don't know. But she's clearly preying upon, maybe not she, but Lizzie's psyche or spiritual weakness, whatever, is clearly being preyed upon because she's trying to provoke feelings of jealousy, and that Emma had slept with her husband and is having his child, and then also the digger of graves, right? Because which there's a lot of that. So then Lizzie rips those 2 pages out and then throws them in the fire and then chloroforms herself. Which is probably not good if you're pregnant. I don't know if chloroform has any effect on unborn babies, but if it's probably not a good idea to chloroform yourself when pregnant. So then it cuts to Lizzie giving birth. Isaac tells her, "Oh, it's a boy," and Lizzie's like, "Well, why isn't he crying?" So then it cuts.
Scene.
Yeah, this is just horrible. I mean,
that's the one where she's screaming. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. She's like in this agonizing screaming, delivers the baby. And then she's like, why isn't he crying? We know what happens, right? So then they're, digging the grave. And this is nothing that messes with time because Lizzie says the baby's name is Samuel. And Isaac responds, it's a good name. And so they put this little wooden plaque, like with an S carved into it. Like nail it to the tree, right where he's buried. But then in another scene, I think previous to that, we see Lizzie and Emma leaning up against this tree, and we see Emma's like partially. We can see there's a plaque on the tree, but we can't see what it says. So again, it's kind of we see the time being messed with. So then Lizzie buries her Bible with Samuel and says he'll use it more than I will. So then did you want to say anything on that? I don't want to monologue the whole time.
No, it's just like, it's just ironic that these movies where they have these strong, female characters end up doing the very things that, that people always talk about, right? Which is like everything that you've just said. The bearing the Bible thing is just, they have a choice of decisions to make and they always go for the absolute wrong one, which plays into the very thing that's punishing them or killing them or whatever. And I don't know. I just think it was confusing with the male characters in this because like there's only 2 dudes and then the preacher shows up, but it's still confusing. Like who is with whom here? That's kind of part of the point of the movie. But again, like where's her husband? Where's he go? right?
Yeah,
Is
because
he?
he
I
comes
mean,
back at some point. And he's like, when I think it's when he comes back when she's in the trance and is repeating that thing in German, or maybe it's another scene. I can't remember. It's one like that where she's kind of coming out of an episode, and he said like, "Oh, I shouldn't have left you alone like that for the." I don't know. I think I can't remember if he says how many days he was gone, or it's something like that. Yeah,
right.
that's a great point. Slow Boy says bearing Bible sounds like witchcraft. Like, yeah, that is kind of I don't know. This is going to have a witchcraft kind of
Well, she
kind of
dug him
element
back
to
up,
it.
and that's where the golden tablets came from. And the baby's name was Joseph Smith.
The S was for Smith.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, she was doing that embroidery. So now I'm not even going to go there. But so then this Reverend appears, and he's like he's looking in the window. She gets a gun out. She's freaked out, and he's like, "Oh, like sorry, I'm just harmless Reverend passing by," and he was actually. The Reverend was one of my favorite. He may have been my favorite character in this movie. He was a trip. Uh, so this guy he appears and Lizzie gives him food and he said that I haven't, this is like the first real food I've had in weeks, and says I've been out spreading the word of God, and then Lizzie retorts that she doesn't suspect that God has much business out here. And he says something to the effect of like, you've lost, so you've lost your faith or something, and then he tells her he'll pray for her. And so she tells the Reverend to stay at the empty Harper cabin. It says, don't be out after dark, and don't open the door for anyone after dark, even me. So then her husband is gone again. Lizzie is then awoken in the middle of the night. Reverend's beating on the door, begging her to let him inside.
Yeah,
So
the
she's like,
Reverend's like, don't tell me what to do. I just told you I've been outside for a month, like eating carcasses. I think I'll be fine.
Yeah,
He's an old
that's
coot. He's the real cooter
yeah.
brown. Right?
He was the one that ate the side of her goat.
Yeah.
Which is like, I'm going
I'm
to take
glad
this
I'm glad
out
it
of
was
you.
that preacher and not the one from Poltergeist, right? Caroline. Right. Seems like this cabin was built on a Indian burial ground or something. That's their whole problem.
Could be, yeah.
They got all this land, endless land, and they decided to build it in the one place, right, where the Poltergeist guy is in that cave underneath. Caroline.
So then Lizzie lets him in, and he's like, he says something like, there's something out there, like this is terrifying. And Lizzie's like, I know. And they said, well, why did you stay here? And she's like, my husband doesn't believe it's real. And then he says something about like, oh, well, Emma, thought it was real. And then Lizzie's like, wait, hold up. And then the Reverend's like, oh, I've said too much. And then his eyes turn black, and he like rises up out of his chair, and it almost looks like he's disintegrating. And then Lizzie runs away to the other cabin. She comes back the next morning, finds the Reverend dead outside, and her front door is open, and the Bible that she buried with Samuel is sitting on the floor, covered in dirt, excuse me, right at the front door. So then, she picks it up, and so then Isaac shows back up. He rides up. So then Lizzie's out by Samuel's grave, and she's got the shotgun in her mouth, and she's about to Kurt Cobain herself. But then she stops because Isaac rides up. She gets the gun, points it at him, walks out, and Isaac's like, "Whoa, what are you doing? It's me, her husband, right?" And he says the Reverend told him that he was like, "Oh yeah, I saw the Reverend on my way home. He said you were hospitable." And Lizzie's like, "No way, like there's no way you saw the Reverend." But then his body just disappears, right? It's like, well, where'd the body go? So then Isaac brings brings Emma's trunk to Lizzie. It's full of books, and he's reading to her from Frankenstein. So then Lizzie finds another copy of this Demons of the Prairie pamphlet in Emma's trunk. Isaac gets pissed off, and he says, look, Emma took her own life. And Lizzie's like, no, I don't think that's true. I'm not sure about that. So then Emma's ghost appears as Isaac walks out into the dark and asks again, where's your gun, Lizzie? So then the Reverend appears as some kind of apparition. Lizzie then gets thrown about the room by the wind because the door is open and the wind is like coming through. So she's getting, tossed around the room, and then gets stabbed in the abdomen by this like big pair of old school scissors or shears or something. And so then this ghostly Emma is like, then Lizzie's asleep. This is what you mentioned earlier with it was interesting to have sleeping scenes in movies because Lizzie is sleeping and this ghostly looking Emma, which again, I agree was very well done, is kind of humming as Lizzie sleeps. Lizzie wakes up and then sees Isaac reading Emma's diary. Lizzie has been tied to the bed and he asks her, he's like, how did Emma get your gun? And then Lizzie sees this kind of dark presence appearing on the ceiling, and she tells Isaac, like, no, there's something there. And Isaac then it kind of then we start seeing flashbacks where it's again we're led to believe that Lizzie is the one that shot Emma. And so let's see. So then Isaac's eyes turn black. So she sees him turning into this kind of, evil figure. So then she gets a glass shard and stabs him in the neck. Well, then we see again his eyes are normal. And so then it flashes back again, and we see the Reverend gave Lizzie, the same Reverend. Lizzie's on like the front seat of a covered wagon out in the this dusty area, and the Reverend is handing her this Demons of the Prairie pamphlet. As she's sitting, she appears to be sitting alone on the covered wagon. We don't see Isaac in that scene. So then Lizzie is sitting like bloodied on her bed in an open field. So then like the cabin's just gone. She's just out on her bed in an open field, just kind of staring, and a voiceover of her saying, oh, something is wrong here. And like in this land, there's something wrong here. And Isaac says, he's like, no, your mind is giving you things to worry about. So then the bed disappears when it cuts back to Lizzie still sitting kind of bloodied and dazed, breathing heavily in the field. And then just before that, Isaac mentions, like, there's a scene of him and Lizzie, and he's like, oh, it's our first baby. And it shows Lizzie close, like pitch black outside, she's closing the cabin door. And then that's where it cuts back. So I got my notes out of order here, but the last scene is her sitting on the ground, kind of bloody and just kind of staring out in the field, just sort of breathing heavily. So this is where we get to. That's the end of the movie, and this is where we get to the part of like, what is it? Again, is it postpartum psychosis, possession, insanity, cabin fever, grief induced?
She's psychosis, a banshee.
Jealousy.
She's a banshee.
Yeah, but yeah, she kind of goes feral.
Yeah, she's a wailing, demon ghost of the moors. Like, she becomes Catherine Heathcliff at the end. Or she was like, maybe they sent her out there and they were like, we can't do it. This woman's too crazy, even for the insane asylums where Amadeus was filmed, right? Mediocrity, On the way, she meets Mel Brooks, right, in Blazing Saddles when he's the chief, right? Lazimgane. It's all right. Kappa walk. You remember that scene?
Yeah.
He tells her, just go out there, just go out in the prairie. Just, if you want a house to live in, just imagine it. Right? It'll be fine. You'll live in imagination land and it'll be all right. No, she's just a banshee. And so the question is like, was all of this a projection? The glass shard is like the clearest example of a broken psyche, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that she I like that scene because that was like a Mirror Man. That was like a Red Dragon, right? Mm-hmm. Your son is changing. He is part of a great becoming, right? And then of course she smokes him with the mirror shard, glass shard, whatever. The scissors were kind of weird because again, it was like she falls on where the scissors sitting straight up on the table.
Yeah, I didn't get how she got stabbed by them. That didn't quite make sense to me. That was
just an exterior show of her like doing that to herself.
No, that's probably true.
And that kind of reminds me of like what Hemingway's criticism of Tristan and Isolde, which was that they're separated. They have to lie down like with a sword in between them. And he was like, it doesn't make sense because the sword is flat on the bed. It would have to be sticking up, like to hurt them, to ward them off from being together. So it doesn't really make sense, but it is symbolic. But I don't know. I mean, what's your final takeaway with this film?
I mean, I think it could be like kind of could potential. And I mean, I don't know, I'm not an expert on postpartum psychosis. I don't know, because if it was sort of her, it was a mix of things, because what I'm getting at with that, or like driven insane by grief and jealousy, is because, she tried to have a child once. They lost one. They maybe lost the other one before Emma. Because again, the timelines are kind of fuzzy. And so it was because Emma was pregnant and, was about to give birth, that she was kind of driven insane by other things, with this jealousy. But also think about, I mean, again, I don't want to get too dark here, and we're about to lighten it up here in just a few minutes. But, and I don't want to get, I mean, like, that's one of the most evil crimes you can commit, is offing a woman who is, with child. I mean, that's like as bad as it gets. So I mean, you could certainly make a case for possession. I mean, I think there's a case to be made, for some kind of extreme mental illness, like grief or jealousy induced. I don't know if jealousy induced psychosis is a real thing, but some kind of thing where she just basically snapped and lost touch with reality, and maybe it's a mix of the two. I don't know. I haven't quite. So to answer your question from earlier, I mean, it could be a combination of these. Cabin fever, right? It could be just run-of-the-mill insanity. Like it's really hard to say.
Well, the insanity thing, seems to have some substance in the fact that, like, can't she just put some foundation on or some lipstick or something? I mean, this is a severe-looking woman, right, with those boots and stuff. Maybe it's saying that, when she's with child, she's in a way possessed by, there's another being, there's another person. So the inversion of that is like, I guess, the demonic possession in some way. Maybe they're trying to say, also, here's my take, which I just came up with just now. Maybe this is a movie that is trying to convey the physical pain of childbirth, which a man will never understand. Right. And that the two women share this pain, and that is shown to us from the pain of being alone on the outside. Right. It's showing us that the patriarchy is oppressive, and it will leave you when a woman needs her man the most, and she is forced to fend for herself out in the wild. Also, it's about the dangers of capitalism. Somehow, I don't know. I think that no, I think it's good. I think it's I think it was trying to work on a few different levels here, with the special effects of the demonic possession, like in the mist and the black clouds and the the adreno eyes and all that stuff. And it was done pretty well. It was certainly in the same universe as, like, again, Virginia Woolf or Charlotte Perkins Gilman or any of these writers. But it didn't have because it's about dissociation. There's no and cuts in narrative and like time and where we are, and is any of this real? It didn't give us a substance to know who these characters were, like, from the beginning, and we're too confused seeing it all the way through her eyes. Is what I kind of left with.
Yeah.
But it does tie in with the next movie, right? Because the strangeness of the natural elements and how they speak to you.
Yes, right. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, I guess just to final thoughts on the Wind. I don't. I guess it's one I have to think about some more and kind of come to a final sort of conclusion. But I mean, yeah, I think that there is kind of an element of loneliness of that, of they're out there trying to forge this existence against hardship, and we can see all, read stories about how tough things were on the westward expansion of the United States, and all the problems people encountered, and it was that it was very hard. It was very difficult. They didn't have a lot of life-saving medical measures we have now. Is my understanding, I'm not an expert on that time period in history, but it's my understanding that miscarriages and stillbirths and these kind of things were not uncommon, tragically, and so is it kind of just looking at all these bad things that are happening, and maybe having some weird kind of religious ideas, and maybe seeing evil spirits where it's just like a tragedy that happens. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of different directions you can
Well,
go
maybe
with
they
that.
should have thought about that before colonizing stolen land.
Yeah, exactly. These are some things to consider next time.
Yeah.
Y'all want to go out there and takes it. But actually, that's another interesting thing. And again, last thoughts on this, so we can move on. But that was another thing that was interesting, because a common thing in those kind of Western movies and stories of westward expansion is the frequent interaction with Native Americans, and so when they're out there and there's like none there, there's no, it's not like one even stops by or something, like rides by on a horse and anything like that. There's just nobody. And so anyway, I think that the last thing I'll say on this, I do kind of like the ambiguity of it. I kind of like that in movies where, we see all this death, and, there's all these gravestones, or not gravestones, but like crosses and, impromptu grave markers on the way out there. But it's, so yeah, is the land actually cursed? Is there something sort of in the air? Or again, is it just tragedy and people not being mentally fit for being out there? Is it just people having mental illness? So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but I actually really do appreciate that the writer and director sort of left it wide open to interpretation, left it ambiguous, and that's something I think that can be done poorly, and I think it can be done correctly, and I think in this case it was a slam dunk on getting the ambiguity of what's really going on here.
Right.
I think they got it down perfectly. So, is there anything else you wanted to say before we move on to the happening?
No, that's it. And before we move on to the happening, I got to go get some Franzia from the box in the kitchen real quick. So I'm gonna take 5. I'll be right back, people, and then we're gonna get to the highlight of tonight, which is the great M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Happening, and it's gonna be a happening because Mark Wahlberg doesn't know where he is. I'll be right back.
He has no clue whatsoever. It's Mark Wahlberg is just like, what? I don't know what's happening. And then, yeah, this, the first M. Night Shyamalan, however you say his name, the first movie of his I saw was Unbreakable, and I actually liked that one. This guy I went to church with, who was older than me, he was over at the house one day, and I was probably in middle school, and he was like, all right, because he knew my sisters and all of that, and so he was like, we gotta watch this movie. And he's like, I'm not gonna say anything about it. We just have to watch it. And I'm like, okay. Like, what's it about? He was like, I'm not telling you anything. We just have to watch it. I was like, okay, cool. So we all watched it, and it was Unbreakable. And that one I actually kind of liked. I haven't seen it in years. I don't know if it holds up or not, but I do remember enjoying that one because I like Bruce Willis. I think he's a good actor, and that. So, and I think that actually might be the only one of his I've actually seen all the way through. I mean, I've seen pieces of Signs. Excuse me, not Signs. What was the other Bruce Willis one? What was the other Bruce Willis M. Night Shyamalan movie? I can't think of it, but I saw parts of that. Or The Sixth Sense. So I saw some of The Sixth Sense, and then I saw, I think, parts of Signs, and I think I saw a little bit of The Village too. And I was like, these
fat people.
I see fed people in black helicopters.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Have you seen all of his movies? How many of them have you seen? Sorry, you were just talking about that. I probably interrupted.
Oh, the only one I've actually seen all the way through was
Split.
No, was
The Village.
Unbreakable. I saw Unbreakable. I'd seen
Oh.
that one. I actually did enjoy. I was just saying I enjoyed that one. It's been years since I've seen it, but I actually did. I watched it a few times after. I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times. And then I saw pieces of The Sixth Sense. I don't think I ever saw Signs. I did see pieces of The Village, and then
You haven't seen Signs?
No,
dude. Based Mel.
I said, dude, yeah, I might actually watch that one because I'm a big Mel Gibson fan. But
yeah,
I'd not seen any of them all the way through until today. I mean, I saw Unbreakable, but I hadn't seen any others all the way through until today when I watched.
Dude, I even have a DVD copy of Lady in the Water.
Oh my gosh, why?
I don't know. I don't know. No, I've seen. I think I've seen all of his films now.
It's like a friend of mine says, if you buy, like, if that movie was like $12.99, the DVD was $12.99, you should get a rebate coupon for $13.99.
I used to buy like DVDs by the cartload at the music store here, which paid off, by the way, when Karunka happened. You know, when they blacked out everything and there was no media. Plus, I didn't have internet here, so I just watched my hundreds of DVDs. But I didn't rewatch that one, by the way. But it does have Bryce Dallas Howard. Who I think is kind of fine. I always thought she was kind of fine. She's in Terminator Salvation. The Village, Signs, Unbreakable, Split, Glass, Trap. The one that he did, Old, right?
I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah, that's the one on the beach, which I saw the first 5 seconds of the movie and knew. Can I give a spoiler alert for that film?
Go ahead. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, because his movies, like the selling point for his movies has always been that they have a twist, like there's a twist ending, right? And that worked. That started off working. That was, that's how he got started with Sixth Sense. It was a big twist. And that's a cool movie because people have kept the twist. They've kept it on the DL, for a long time. I guess people probably know now what the twist is, but for a long time, like people just kept it themselves. And that's kind of the key to the movie. Then somewhere along the line, I think what happens with people like this is what I have a friend who's a production assistant, and she worked on Donnie Darko because it's Richard Kelly and he's from it's supposed to be Richmond in the movie. And she said that he did that, and then she worked on his follow-up, The Box, which is also pretty good. But the reason that wasn't like Donnie Darko and that he hasn't been making movies is that when a filmmaker is new and they make something where they have like total creative control and they make it on a low budget and it like ends up being a huge hit, the downside is that they get flooded with money. And then in their follow-up, they have so much money and so many like assets that the creative part of what made the first movie good is kind of just, it dissipates and no one can really see it. Like they can see it happening, but they don't want to really, deal with it. The production studios, like the studios, they want more involvement, and eventually it just ruins, the thing that was good about the first movie, and they can't really ever go back because now they're famous. And I think that's what happened with Shyamalan, because the first few movies were, they were really good, and then somewhere along the line they just got like they became a parody of themselves. And he's so prolific, he puts out movies so much that like when I did Trap, you find yourself thinking like, who financed this? Like, why would someone finance this, produce it? Like, why would they continue to do this with this dude? And I guess it's because with Hollywood, like you're only as good as your last movie or whatever. And Split was so good. It was so well done. It was like his sort of, he had his career kind of went back up again. And then he had more, he had more control and all this stuff. And now he's back to making like just like slop, like that one about the woods, the woods or whatever. It came out like around 2020, and it's got, who's the guy? Is it Batista? Who's the guy that who's the guy that, like, is it the same guy? He recently put out that thing. He was like, people say that you're not a man, like you're not an alpha if you're not going to vote for the lady, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that, like Trump is and he does this thing where he says like Trump is not like masculine or something. Have you seen all this stuff? Like this
No,
guy's latest, he did a spot for
politics.
Mamala or whatever, which is weird on its own. But anyway, that guy's in it. It's like where the two guys are in the cabin, they're Skittles, and like the three people show up with like farm implements, and they're like, you have to make a decision because it's the end of the world outside, and so somebody has to unalive somebody. And it's stupid. It's like a seventh grader wrote a premise for a short story like that he wrote in a spiral notebook in like a creative writing class at school. That's like literally what it's like.
Yeah.
And so his movies are like, I don't know, they get to the point where they're it's like, is this guy trolling us or is he just a hack? And The Happening, I think, is one of those films. Right. You watched it today for the first time, you said?
Yeah, I watched it. Actually, I finished it just before the stream started. I didn't have time.
Well, Maddie texted me earlier, and he said this in confidence that he was pleasantly surprised, and he said it was he never knew that like there was such beautiful art, and that everybody else had the wrong take. They just didn't understand it because he's a noticer, and a deep dive appreciator, right? And he's the real analyzer. Isn't that what you said?
I will actually read to the people what I actually said. I said, I'm watching The Happening now because I didn't have time to watch it earlier, and I am legitimately angry. This is the worst garbage I've ever seen. I thought the Bonfire of the Vanities adaptation was bad, but this is absolutely putrid trash. Now, in hindsight,
that sounds good, but he just ad-libbed that whole text. He didn't actually send that. And by trash, he meant like trash, like as in like Maddie's been trying to like get this new term into the zeitgeist, which is that when something's awesome, he calls it trash. So he's like, yeah. Bro, it was fetch, it was trash.
Yeah, it's like when it's like when somebody does something really cool, you're like, oh, that's sick. Be like, no, it's trash.
Yeah.
Exactly. I will say actually though, after finishing the movie, as horrible as it was, I still think Bonfire of the Vanities is worse. I've thought about this, and it is still the worst movie of all time. I will say real quick before we move on.
Very bad.
Since you mentioned kind of directors, with that happening where they have like a movie. One director that I think it seemed, I don't know if that's kind of set in, but one of my favorite directors, and we analyzed the film he co-directed, Sin City, is Robert Rodriguez, because he did El Mariachi, and he made for like under $1 million. I think he made it for like way less, and I think most of the budget was the production budget. And then it was a smash hit. Like, it was huge. Everybody loved El Mariachi. And then he did the trilogy where they switched up the cast. They did Desperado, and they did Once Upon a Time in Mexico. From
Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, and like those I actually I think those were great. I mean, I think all of Rodriguez's films have been really good. I thought Planet Terror was really well done. I think both Sin City movies. The second one was not as good as the first, but I'm not
the biggest fan of that guy.
I think he's one of my favorites, man. I think that the Machete movie, the first one was good. The second one was not quite there, and then they never did the third one, and they never did the third Sin City either. And I don't think he's put anything out in years. And I couldn't
even watch Planet Terror.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I couldn't even watch it. Like, I made it like 7 minutes in, and then I just cut it off. Like, because zombies, and there's like squanchy, squishy. There's like a lot of hospital green, and there's blood, and I'm not a prude, and I love I like Rose McGowan as much as anybody else. But what I did like was that was like, it was a double feature, because I like the other one so much. Because the Death Proof to me is Tarantino. Like, that movie rocks. Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh, weird. You know what I just thought of? What's weird is that what's his hood ornament on his Death Proof car? It's a duck.
Oh, that's right.
You mentioned the green duck. And when the woman was doing the pillows, right? The feathers come out. That's related to a duck.
That's true.
Yeah. Duck.
A lot of duck symbolism going on here. But anyway, I think that Robert Rodriguez hasn't done anything, and I don't know. And
Somebody step on a duck.
I wouldn't say that Rodriguez has lost his touch, but I think that, Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, and the Machete Kills were not his. I enjoyed them, but they were not his best work. And I don't like I said, I don't think he's really done.
I bet you I know why he hasn't done much, and I bet I can pinpoint his problem. Do you know what it is? There is a direct correlation between the disappearance of, let's say, Varwy Steinween, right? The famous Uber producer. His disappearance, like his what would you call that?
Ousting.
Ousting in Hollywood, and the nosedive, the tanking of movie quality. I mean, look, say what you will about that reprehensible and terrible character and what he was not even alleged, but what he now, has to account for. But when it comes
in the court of law,
but when it comes to making movies, right? When it comes to his track record, his streak, I mean, it's hard to deny, right? That because he's Miramax, he's Tarantino. The Tarantino movie that was made after his ousting, right? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I covered, read the book, and I liked the movie. But it's totally different in every way from the rest of his body of work. And you can tell that the reason for that is because that guy is not involved. Right? When that guy was around, he's Tropic Thunder, right? He's get control of your actors or I will shut you down, right? You better cut 30 minutes of this movie.
Didn't Tom Cruise play that? Or am I mixing that up? Didn't he play that character? Harvey character?
Les Grossman. Yeah. But actually, you know what they said is that's actually not him. It's actually Joel Silver. But I think that whatever, the point stands that like that kind of like Uber producer, right, which has always been a Hollywood thing. They're in the enforcers, right? His brother was the financier, his brother was the money guy, and he was the creative controller. And his body of work, like the movies that he, Miramax, that his streak in the 90s, up to that point is like, I mean, it really is incredible. And he kind of, took over where Don Simpson, when Don Simpson disappeared, was gone. I guess he kind of, filled that gap. Don Simpson was, a wild man in different ways. High concept.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is that, I don't think he ever had anything to do with Shyamalan movies.
Not that I know of.
Someone else probably. But
somebody
they could have used they could have used somebody like that on the set, because like these movies are so, when you watch The Happening, this is how I feel about it. When I watch it, and I saw it when it came out in the theater, I actually paid for this. When I went and saw it, I kept thinking, this is so wrong and so weird and so like non-cohesive that at the end they'll put it all together and it'll all make sense. There'll be context for all this. Same with the damn Megalopolis movie, but that doesn't happen. It's just haphazard. It's like a student film, right? It's you know what it is? This movie is an opportunity for actors to be cast in a role where they're like, okay, what am I doing here? Tell me, like, what's my thing? And they're like, I don't know, just like, here's your line, like, make it work, explore. And they say lines and they don't have any purpose or any meaning.
Yeah.
They're written poorly and they're done by quirky, like C-grade actors trying to do an audition tape. That's what The Happening is to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I will also say, speaking of Megalopolis, BLA and I had a huge fight before this. We almost didn't do the stream. Friendship almost canceled because we had a disagreement about Francis Ford Coppola. I was like, he's the greatest. No one has ever been better. Everything he touches is lightning in a bottle. And BLA was like, nah, some of his movies suck. And I was like, you know what?
Because you said that his best work was that work where Robin Williams plays the robot. That's what you said was the top of his career. Isn't that a Francis Ford Coppola movie, you guys?
Which one?
What it's is that? I think it's called Independence Day or something like that. Robin Williams is like a damn robot.
Was it Bicentennial Man?
That's it. Yeah. See, you know the title.
I thought somebody else did that. Let me look.
I think it is
Bicentennial Man.
And you said his second best is The Rainmaker, starring Matt Damon.
Or Chris Columbus did Bicentennial Man.
That guy sucks. Well, he did direct Home Alone, so
that's true.
Yeah.
But no, I'm a big Coppola fan. I'm a big Sofia Coppola fan as well. But I'm kidding. We didn't have a huge fight.
I am a Nicholas Coppola fan.
Yes, 100%.
Who's Nicholas Coppola, chat? Who's Nicholas Coppola?
Y'all know Nicholas Coppola, and I like the Schwartzmans as well. You know, they're tied in. I think those guys are. I think those guys are good. I'm a big Coconut Records fan. If y'all know
Jason Schwartzman, you know, Rushmore is his movie. He's great. He carries the movie. It's his character, right? Max Fisher, and everything he's done since then to me has been like he was in Marie Antoinette. I think Marie Antoinette, Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette. I think it's it's like a brilliant movie. It's like a impressionistic, like pop. It's whatever. And I get that his character, you know, the Louis character is like a gamma, just total. He just sucks, right? He's a Gumby.
Tested Gub Snail Man.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also like you can tell that Sofia Coppola was like, all right, cousin, like you're gonna play this guy. Here's what he was like, and he was like doing an impression of what he thought that character would be, and it's so bad. It's like so empty. He's just not good. He's just he's in Megalopolis. He's got one line. He's like, hey, there's a newspaper. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you in this movie? Also, why are you my age now?
Are y'all the same age?
I think we're about the same age.
Okay.
And you know, Rushmore, it's like, you know, he's playing a student and stuff, and he's so good at it. It's like, dude, this guy should have never been in another movie.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think that he was good in. I think he did the role because Marie Antoinette is an amazing film, and I think he did well with that role for the film. Like if it was a true like period piece, like biopic of Marie Antoinette, like it would have been a disaster if he had played the same role. But because of it being what it is, kind of Sofia Coppola's really, I think, amazing vision of, you know, Marie Antoinette. I think he actually he did the role very, very well. But
awesome soundtrack.
Yes, yeah. But I think that Jason Schwartzman. I mean, I think he's an okay actor, but yeah, Coconut Records. I think he should stick with that. Wasn't
that his band that played the theme song to the OC, California?
Or that was Phantom Planet. He used to be in Phantom Planet. He played drums for Phantom Planet, and then they did that one, and then he started Coconut Records somewhere along the way. Great band. But anyway, to get into the happening, this is this one. It's a fun movie. I think the problem is that the Shyamalan was explicit about the fact that they were trying to make a B movie. And I think if you look at B movies historically, and I don't think it's that these people were trying to make masterpieces, but it was kind of like, it wasn't like an intentional thing. And now when people do B movies, it's like an intentional kind of thing. And I think in the case of like the Grindhouse films, the Rodriguez Tarantino double feature, that was kind of an homage, but they were trying to make good films. And I think they succeeded in that. But
you know why those are good films?
Because
the one thing that a B movie has, and it has to rely on this, is a script. Like they almost always have either a good script, or if it's bad, it's intentionally like ironic, right? Like all the Ed Wood stuff. Even the movie Ed Wood, right, with Jonathan Depp, like it's a very good movie. And it has you have to have somebody on the screen that has charisma, or like there has to be some sense of a story. Like, have you ever seen that movie Surf, Nazis, Must Die?
I've seen parts of it.
Have you seen like the Warriors?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's
the gang movie from what, 87?
Yeah. Warriors come out to play. What does the guy say? Can you dig it? Yeah. The Van Cortlandt Rangers and all that.
Boiler Room drop they use.
Yeah. It's like it's cheap. There's nobody like famous. There's the one guy doing the bottles. He's the bad guy in Commando. That guy, little short guy. But other than that, like it's like a B movie, but it's good.
Yeah.
right? It's like, why have you ever seen Roller Boys?
No, I haven't seen that
Corey
one.
Haim, it's Corey Haim, a bunch of other guys. It's like post-apocalyptic, and they've got to like roller skate through like the apocalyptic landscape.
That sounds fun.
It's very bad and like very like it's good. Right. This is like, I think there's nobody um like there's no consultant, there's no one over Shyamalan for the script, right? Like where's the executive producer? Where are the people that are going to tell him like, no, you can't, this cannot happen, first of all, right?
Yeah.
The happening, more like the FA, oh, never mind.
I mean, one of the most shocking things about this movie is that the budget, I just looked this up, the budget was estimated between 48 and 60 million, and it made 163.4 million at the box office. And then home media, if you look on Wikipedia, that's what it says. As of August 2020, the DVD units sold have generated over $22.4 million in revenue.
Okay, so I believe that it took in, that I could believe that it took in that amount of money because it was riding on the previous films, and also because the trailer, I remember this, the trailer for this movie made it look like a movie that this movie didn't become.
Yeah.
Right. There's one scene in the trailer where a guy's like on a tractor and he like gets off and he lies down in front of it and it's like about to run over him. That was like the key scene in the trailer, and that isn't in the movie.
No, it is in the movie.
They cut it from the trailer, how it looked in the trailer. So in the trailer, like it's like running over the dude. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
I
in
guess
the movie
they show
the tractor and they show a dead guy. And at one point they show a guy getting off, but they don't show him lying down and it going over him. I thought that.
Okay, because I remember there was a scene where the guy turns the tractor on, he lays down in the grass and it runs over him.
In the cinematic presentation, they cut it. They do that a lot with films.
So they put it in for the streaming? Like, was it not in there in the theatrical release?
Wasn't in the theatrical release.
Okay. I see. Okay, because I didn't see. I guess I didn't see it in the theaters. I only saw it I watched it on Amazon. So I guess that they put it back in or something.
But the financing for this movie, the budget, I mean, that's got it. Like, we all know that this is, that there's laundering happening with these numbers and stuff. It's just like the art world. Sure. I saw, what's the dude's name? You know that movie Grandma's Boy? The dude, that dude was on Mersh and Royce the other day, and he even said, he was like, I don't know the numbers with this. Like, I don't know how they come up with these numbers, right? Because we could make these comedies for like 5 or 10 million at the very most. So, but the big studios are like, well, we're spending 200 million on this other film. Why would we give you this? And he's like, because that's 200 million. And this is pocket change to you. Right. But the studios don't want to do it because like comedies are almost like they just never, and even especially now, like no comedies are made. Yeah.
Yeah, there's basically not been any kind of funny movies. And yeah, I mean, I think that this was also in an era, this movie was in an era where there was an era kind of in the late 2000s. I don't know people were still going to movies then, but there was this trend of you would see a trailer for a movie. Maybe a great example is The Perfect Getaway that starred Steve Zahn and Timothy Olyphant. I can't remember who else was in there. And you saw the trailer and you're like, yo, this looks like a thrilling kind of movie. And I remember I went and saw it with this girl I was dating at the time. I was so pissed off that I had just spent $20 for 2 tickets to watch the most boring movie of my life. And so I didn't see the trailer for The Happening, but I'm guessing it was a similar kind of thing of where you take all the exciting moments in the movie and then you cut it in such a way that it seems more thrilling.
Was Perfect Getaway the one with Mia Jovovich? Steve Zahn, like Mia Jovovich, they were in like Hawaii or something. They were in the tropics.
Oh yeah, I think she was Perfect Getaway.
Yep,
yes, yeah, that's right. And Chris Hemsworth, Marley Shelton. It had a good cast. Yeah, Dale Dickey was in it. Like the cast was good, but the movie
famous Vanderbilt, Timothy Olyphant. Did you know that?
Is he actually Vanderbilt?
Cousin of Anderson Cooper.
No way.
Yeah. Did you know that guy Danny Houston? You've seen him in a million movies.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Houston and his son Jack Houston. They are. Let's see. He's the son of John Houston, the director, but he's also an our child.
Interesting. Oh yeah, I knew that. That's right. Yeah.
And then the actor Balthazar Getty, who was in Lord of the Flies 1990. Getty. He's a Getty, son of John Paul Getty III.
He was in at least one or two of David Lynch's movies. Maybe more.
Paris Hilton.
Yep. Yeah. Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie, starring in the what was it? What was the name of that movie?
The Hot Chick?
No, that was Paris's catchphrase. Was "That's hot." What was that show they did? It wasn't The Real World. It was.
This is called a Walmart. What do they sell here? Walls? Do they sell walls here? That's hot. I like Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton's funny. Anyway, to get back to The Happening, this is an interesting movie because it shows the difference between what an actor can do with a good director versus a bad director. So if you look at like Mark Wahlberg, I think I like Mark Wahlberg as an actor. I like a lot of his movies. You look at a movie like with a great director like Scorsese. Take The Departed, for example. I think that's maybe Wahlberg's best role. He was funny. He was.
What's the matter, smart guy? Can't quote Shakespeare?
Yeah.
Very good in that.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, and he just nailed the look because he had the kind of like longish kind of swooped hair. He had his pants that were like way too big. Like he just looked like a Boston
changed cop. when the beep and the guineas came here. Remember Jack Nicholson? Like he drops a hard R
like right
for no reason at the beginning of the movie.
I was like, dang.
The one thing that movie, by the way, that movie and Good Will Hunting did, which still continues to this day, is that they made Boston like this whole Southie thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everybody's like, yeah, are you from Southie? Yeah, I'm from Southie. Yeah. It's kind of like in New York, right? How everybody in New York is like, yeah, I'm connected. Yeah, I know a guy. It's like, no, you don't.
No.
You don't, and you're not from Southie. You probably went to Phillips Exeter.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You're from like Brookline or whatever. It's like you're not.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault, Chief. Speaking of Robin Williams, by the way, that movie I was thinking of is called Jack.
Jack. Okay, I don't.
Yeah, and he plays like a grown man child or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, totally forgotten. I like. Yeah, R.I.P. Robin Williams.
Yeah,
I like him.
Anyway, so yeah, the Happening is, and like Zooey Deschanel, John Leguizamo. Like I actually like John Leguizamo. I think he's a good actor. I like Zooey Deschanel, but they're basically the only people of note in this movie. Some of the other actors, I recognize them. I just couldn't place them. I was like, I know I've seen these people.
John Leguizamo, more like John Leg. What was it I said earlier? John Legreaseball, did you say?
Something like that.
You said, why'd they make him up to look like he was Lebanese?
Yeah, I think he's Colombian, and they had him. He looked like he kind of looked like Mark Ruffalo's character. He sort of had that like Mark Ruffalo's character and Stanley Tucci's characters in Spotlight were both Lebanese, and he kind of looked like that. I was like, why does John Leguizamo look like
he's playing a teacher
in Spotlight? It didn't make any sense, but
because he's playing a math teacher.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, all math teachers look like that. By the way, remember in the movie he says he gives them the math quiz, like the riddle.
Yeah.
Is that true? I found that. I found that mind blowing. If you start off with 1 penny,
I give you the next day, I give you 2 pennies, and then 4 pennies, and 8 pennies, just double it from there. What do you say? You'd have $10 million, and it's like, what? It's like, is the tree gas getting to you? So to start off this movie, it starts off in Central Park, and these 2 young ladies are sitting on a bench talking, and then one of them starts talking nonsense. Everybody freezes, and then people start mass killing themselves. And I will just say, I'm just going to get it out right out of the gate. The reason this movie pissed me off is because I don't like movies that for one, it was just horrible. But I don't
Where
like movies.
actors go like this.
Yes, like, oh, we're like doing an improv game.
Right.
But
Yep.
what
That's exactly what it
yeah,
was.
that's
Yeah.
like an improv type of thing. If you ever been around theater people, that's the kind of thing that that you do, or like improv
Trust me, you've got one
groups.
right here. Here.
Well,
Dude, I was literally in a play where we had to play a choo-choo train.
that sounds awful.
Yeah. What does it feel like? You're a wheel. You're a wheel. You're a spoke. You're a window. I was like, what the fuck, dude?
You're the
I'm a
shovel
what?
that is being used
Yeah.
to put coal in the
Yeah,
engine.
you're a piece of coal. And I was like, what? I'm supposed to, why don't we just do this? Because we're on a train, right?
Yeah.
He was like, no, trains move asymmetrically. Feel it. Feel it. We're going to work it out for 6 days.
But the reason this movie pissed me, one of the reasons it pissed me off so much is I don't like movies that are blatant propaganda. I'm going to jump ahead to the end here. This movie is blatant climate change propaganda, and that's the problem. It's like, oh, the Earth is angry at us. Now we'll kind of, I guess, walk through the movie here, but one of the problems with this movie is we're going to be all over the place here, but I just want to hit the main points here. Is there's a scene where they're running from this thing that's being released from the trees, and they get to this. They're holed up in a model home. They're running away, and there's this billboard behind them for the subdivision that's going up, and there's a thing. It's like one of these idyllic, homes from the 300s, right? It's like $300,000 for prefab cookie cutter homes, and there's a sign over the top that says "You deserve this," and it's obviously saying you deserve to die because Mama Gaia is unhappy with the fact because like the bees are dying. Look, I'm a big bee guy. I like bumblebees. I like honeybees. I think they're very important. We know this, but that's a big kind of central point to the movie is that, well, the bees are dying because the movie starts. Yeah, all these people are offing themselves in Central
They
Park.
made a comeback, by the way. I think bees have made a big comeback, which is good. Because Gil Bates was trying to get rid of him with his drone mosquito bees or whatever. But yeah, they made a comeback, which is nice. But yeah, you're right. How dare you? I should be back in school. Right. This was definitely, you're right. It's definitely a climb thing. It also, but I'm sorry to interrupt. What I thought of when I saw this was that it was, remember that thing, Operation Lack in St. Louis, where they like doused the whole city in silver cadmium. We're going to fluoridate the entire city, right? And then we're going to say it's something else, and then they had to admit to it, which is also the basis for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They did the same thing in that movie, and I saw it kind of like that. I mean, I remember when Karanka happened, like this was one of the not one of the immediate movies people thought of, but it was kind of a predictive movie because people like distancing and running away and all these people being smoked like out of nowhere is what normies were saying. Also it's a post Big Nine movie because one of the things that happens at the beginning, right, with the buildings and the falling men, right. It's like obvious when you watch it that this is a Big Nine. We're supposed to think of Big Nine. Who wouldn't?
Right. It also brings.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, also brings to mind. Was it Black Monday? I think there was a lot of because there's that line, or is it Friday? Whatever the day was, like where the stock market crashed. The Steely Dan has a great song called Black Friday, and there's a line. The first line of the song, it actually titled one of the streams. I nicked a line from that song for it, where it's like when Black Friday comes, I'm going to stand down by the door and catch the gray men when they dive from the 14th floor. Right. So it's people who apparently were jumping out of the build because like whenever I guess they were like financially ruined. And so people were jumping out of buildings. And so there's, and I'm not saying, I don't think there's like a
Hudsucker proxy. Right. Coen Brothers Hudsucker proxy. That's what what sparks the movie. I thought you were talking about that day where I go in and get a bunch of free LG TVs right after Thanksgiving.
I get
when
my
I got a,
my spyware
I fought that
TV.
grandmother into Walmart for an LG. There were plenty of them left, but
Yeah, it was like 70 on the shelves, and I
imagine going into a Walmart and
go for one.
like throwing hands with a random grandmother for an LG TV.
Yes, it's like $70 TV. That's crazy. They're probably cheaper than that. But
They
yeah,
still got to
anyway,
pay for it.
that's a thing that you know. So yeah, I mean that people in New York City diving out of windows because there's it starts in the park and then there's a construction site where these guys they're hanging out telling jokes, not working, and then all of a sudden this guy fall and they think, oh, this guy fell from up high, but then it's, oh no, it's people jumping off of so we can see tie-ins to like what happened at the World Trade Center, what happened at big stock market crash back, I think it was the one right before the Great Depression. So
The falling man.
yeah, so that's kind of a thing because, and then there's a lot of talk about people don't know what this is. So they're like, is this terrorism? Right? We don't know why people are doing this. We don't know where this is coming from. But then it cuts to, this was interesting since you mentioned the CV-19, and I'm not saying what that was, what it wasn't. I have no idea. I have no possible way of knowing. I think that whatever the CDC says, everybody should follow. But
It was the Brazilians and the Albanians.
There was an interesting thing where they're talking about, well, why are the bees disappearing? Because that's what they're having this because Mark Wahlberg is a high school science teacher, so they're having this discussion. He's asking the students, why do you think like the bees
Why do you
are
think
dying
science
off?
is
And
happening?
so
Yeah, they're like, we don't know. No cap, for real.
yeah, like I don't know, man. The bees ain't got no riz, so they're not reproducing. They're not macking on the ladies. But anyway, but he said, I think one of the students said something like, well, it could be like a mass, not like extinction. I can't remember the word he uses, but basically saying that it could be like an event to like make them all sick or something. And Wahlberg's like, well, it could be, but I think he says it's like a government thing or something. He's like, well, it could be, but across 24 states, that's hard to pull off. There are a lot of theories out there about, what happened. I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not going to make claims on that, but I did think that was interesting.
Chemtrails and a fake flag chemtrails, big capital E event, where they are dousing the populace in silver cadmium and ionizing the atmosphere. Gone wrong, right?
Yeah.
To prepare some sort of base in your biological system, like that will take on a catalyst that will do whatever the thing they want to do is.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. He mentions that. I think that the teaching scenes are hilarious because Mark Wahlberg, who has played a teacher in like a bunch of things, by the way, he plays an English professor in that gambling movie called The Gambler.
Oh, never saw
Talking
it.
about Shakespeare. He takes those roles because he's like, I want everybody to know that I can read.
Well, can I actually? I don't want to interrupt, but this is funny. I actually do want to bring this up here. There's a section on the Wikipedia article where it has the subheading responses of cast and crew, where it said Wahlberg offered his own opinion of The Happening in 2010, saying that Amy Adams, who was in consideration for the role that Zooey Deschanel played of his wife, he said that she had, quote, dodged the bullet by not starring in the film. He said it was a really bad movie. F it. It is what it is. You can't blame me for not wanting to try to play a science teacher. At least I wasn't playing a cop or a crook. So
who really dodged a bullet were those I don't even want to say, were those Stop Cajun Hate, right? That Wahlberg came across in his youth with his group of friends. Remember that story about Wahlberg?
oh yeah. Dude, that was brutal. That guy was a maniac back in the day. Yeah, he was.
Wahlberg can be a great actor. Like, have you seen the Basketball Diaries?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that he's phenomenal in that. He's good in that movie Fear, where he plays the stalker psycho. He's good, like you said, in The Departed. He plays a counterpoint to the Fat Damon character.
We Own
Kind
the
of
Night.
saves the movie.
Really good in that.
He's good in that. Like, he can be good. He's in a new movie about to come out. I think this Shyamalan. No, it's produced by Bazed, where he's like a pilot flying some convict or something. He's in. it only looks good because when he takes off his hat, it's like, oh, he shaved his head into a donut, like for the role, but it's clearly like a bald cap.
Mhm.
But he's brave. He's brave for doing that. I like how Wahlberg is apparently, I mean, now all he does is like he's pushing Christianity in some way. I mean, I know people will the grift and all that, but I
Well, he
don't know
seems,
his heart. I don't know his heart. I mean, he seems to have a good family. I tend to like him.
yeah, he seems like a genuine guy. I mean, I know he was partnered up with that like Hallowed app or whatever it is, the prayer app, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he seems genuine. He just like gets up at 4 a.m. and works out and like runs a supplement, like a nutritional company that's like their actually products are pretty good. I've used them before and they're very fairly priced. And he just like plays golf and hangs out with his family and makes movies. Like he
He's
does.
definitely an Irish Catholic. Yeah, I mean, he's
Oh
a
yeah, I mean
Boston.
he
I mean, you
seems
know,
like a genuinely like good kind of guy who does seem to take his faith seriously. So I will give that. I mean, again, who knows? I don't know the guy.
who
I don't
knows?
know what he's like, but he
Right.
does seem to be. I mean, he's one of the people that you don't ever hear much bad. I mean, yeah, he did some really terrible things when he was young, but I mean, he seems to have
He's
kind of
good in
made
he's good
amends
in
for that.
Daddy's. Remember Daddy's Home with
I never
Will
saw that.
Ferrell?
Oh, did I see?
Daddy's Home 2. His dad is played by Based Mel, so that's
Ah,
that's pretty cool. There is a good
I've
scene in
seen
the
the other
first one
guys.
with him. Yeah, he's good in that. Like he is good in that. Like remember when he confronts his girlfriend? She's like a ballet dancer, and he's like, "You're spending all day with this crackhead homeless man." He's like, "He's a professional dancer. What are you talking?" um, he's that one's good because it's a comedy, and like he does a comedy, and
Hmm.
that's what Leo should be doing. Um, but yeah, whatever. Entourage is based on
Yeah,
him,
yeah, that's
so
right.
that's cool. But I think this one, it's like, yeah, but you say that afterwards, which, they rarely do that, criticize it at all. But it's like, you knew what you were getting into. You read the script, like, and if you didn't, why not? And did you only take this to be in a Shyamalan movie and because you got to play a teacher?
Hmm.
And by the way, his scene, like in the classroom, is like that to me was like unbelievable. Like he's supposed to come off as like, oh, he's cool and he's relating to his students, but like the content of what he's saying in that, if you listen to it, it's weird. It's remember how he's talking to the kid. He's like you'll never have a problem with that. You'll always be a heartthrob. It's like what?
Oh yeah, because he's like, oh yeah, you look good now. Your face is symmetrical, but your ears and nose are going to keep growing a fraction of an inch. And the
Yeah,
kid's like, what?
no,
He's like, you got to take an interest in science. I was like,
yeah,
okay, thanks, Rick and Morty. Like
yeah,
that's
no,
that's very insightful of
yeah,
you
like
to.
yeah. People will see that and they'll be like, oh, I mean, he's trying to relate, and he's being clever or whatever. But it's like in reality, that's I don't know.
Wouldn't
It was.
fly.
Yeah, maybe I'm overthinking it, but it was not like that's just you don't that was weird to me.
Italian Job. That's a Christopher in the chat says Italian Job. That was another good one.
It was all right. Yeah.
I enjoyed that one, but
Zoe Deschanel, like I like Zoe Deschanel.
yeah,
She always kind of reminds me of my sister. My sister's like better than her, obviously, but she reminds me of her. Like, I like how she seems like a positive character, but in this movie, it was also like, is she his wife or his ex-wife, or is she Leguizamo's wife?
she was Wahlberg's wife because we never actually see Leguizamo's wife.
But he's talking about her, right?
Yeah, because he's kind of in communication with her. We never actually see or hear her.
So the
I think,
kid is Leguizamo's kid,
yeah,
right? And they take the kid.
I think Leguizamo probably got shafted the worst here because that dude's actually a really good actor, and his character was just such a dumb goofball. Like it
Yeah.
just didn't work. I mean, I kind of felt bad because like he really is good, and then to
Well,
see him, I mean, again, he took the role, so it's like I don't feel bad for him, but I think
he
if
makes
anybody's
up for that.
talents
Yeah,
for the most
he actually
wasted
does a role
episodes.
where he comments on that very thing. Later, have you seen The Menu? Ray Fiennes.
No, I
Taco
heard that one was
Tuesday.
good, but I
Taco.
haven't seen it.
I can make you a cheeseburger. Yeah, it is good. And Leguizamo's character in that is an actor who like his deal is that he has been taking on roles exactly like this. Right, because he's like, I took this role in The Amazing Sunshine because I needed the money. I got admitted I needed the money, right? But he's been telling everybody he took it because he thought it was like a brave artistic role. And Ray Fiennes is like, I went to the theater and I saw your film, and I decided that you would be at this event because you have to pay. You have to pay with your spirit and your soul for making me making me go through hell to watch your Amazing Sunshine movie. That's the whole point of his character in that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's the I mean, again, like we talked about things being realistic, and I think that I'm not one of those people that says like, oh, everything in a movie has to be realistic. I don't think that's true, because it's it's film, so it's like it's a different it's a medium to get across a story, and so now you can say like if films are kind of like not hyper realistic, but are like supposed to be realistic, and then something crazy happens. I mean, I'm actually, I found as I've gotten older, I've been a lot more forgiving of that, maybe because I kind of understand film more and kind of have a different feel and appreciation for it. Anyway, what I'm getting at is like this I lost my train of thought. I was going somewhere with this, but anyway, so what I was going to get with the movie, so they're I don't know if it was exactly clear where they were, but so they call they just, one of the things that I thought was wild.
I would assume Philly. All of his movies are set in Pennsylvania or like in Philly.
It might have been. I think they were going to or away from. I think they were in Philly, but because one of the things that was unrealistic is they took all of the teachers and staff, brought them into the auditorium, and just left the students in the classroom by themselves with no supervision. I was like, that doesn't seem like something that would actually happen. I mean, you may know that more than me. I don't. When I was in, spent 2 years in private school, the students were never unsupervised in a classroom. If the teacher had to step out or something, they brought someone else in. Like it wasn't. It didn't go like that. But
yeah, I mean, look, like that kind of thing happened like during Karanko when that first came out, right? And what they did, they were like, alert, we're getting out, everybody's going to leave right now. And I remember when that happened, because I even said to the class at the time, I was like, we're either going to be back here like next week, or we're not coming back like for a long, long time, right? This is either nothing, this is either the pig VIR thing again, or this is Operation Salmon Polygon with MK Delta doing a 33 level PSYOP, and they were like, that's a lot of words. And I was like, yep, now you got time to like look all that stuff up. Bye. And then I got in my car and turned on We Don't Need Another Hero from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, went home, locked it all up, and said, I think this is it.
Yeah.
What a crazy time. But yeah, you don't leave them there and then go gather in the auditorium to talk to each other, because like you were saying, they don't know what it is. They don't have any media talking about it. They always do this thing where they insert the exposition, right, where the news is on in the background. They're like, turn that up, right? Somebody turns it up in the restaurant and they listen to the news.
Yeah, it gets like deathly quiet. And
yeah, where's the internet, first of all, right?
Well, one of the interesting things was there's that scene in. Oh, so I'll come back to that. But so they get on this train, and somehow in this chaos of everybody trying to get out of town, Leguizamo and I don't even remember this character's name, but him and Wahlberg find each other at the train station, and somehow they managed to all get on the same train. And then Zooey Deschanel is like having this, she went out for dessert with her coworker.
Joe Biden's driving the train.
Her. Yeah, he's like, we're going to Scranton, Jack.
Bo's the engineer. Going to the pool. Seeing the cuckoo clocks. I saw two men embracing on a street corner. My dad told me they were playing tennis.
I was going to say something. I'm not going to go there. So they get on this train. They're going to Philly, and then, or no, I don't know if they're going to Philly. They're going somewhere in Pennsylvania, and then the train stops. And all these, there's like 10, 12 conductors for some reason, and they're all like in a circle. And Mark Wahlberg goes over. He's like, "What's happening? Why am I only getting snippets of information at a time? No one's telling me anything. And they're like, we lost contact. He's like, you lost contact? Like with who?
Yeah, what
and
the fuck?
so they
You lost the DVD for Contact?
Yeah. You lost your contacts? You dropped them
Dr.
down the
Lecter, did you know Matthew McConaughey was in that movie because they needed to give it a human touch? Because they saw me as too cold. Dr. Lecter, did you know I was in the movie Contact? That movie is... The thing blows up, and then there's another identical thing on the other side of the island or whatever that they just so happened the rich guys also built an identical thing to go into space.
Huh.
Right. You remember that? Jake Cockadoodie Busey is the domestic terrorist who blows the first thing up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Very bad. Anyway. Yeah, you're right. The conductors are all in a circle at their conductor Mason meeting. We lost contact. And in reality, they'd be like, who the fuck are you, Brohane?
Yeah, they're like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, get out of here, you nerd. What are you?
Get the fuck out of here! And also, give me a Newport.
You're like nerd with your New Balance and your dad jeans and your V-neck sweater over a white T-shirt. That's very like Brooklyn dad in
aren't you Mark Wahlberg?
Aren't you Mark Wahlberg? Like you, I'm not even gonna say that.
I had one of your burgers. It sucks.
Yeah, your brother's a better actor than you are.
Why is the Liberty Bell like in Philly, like the tourist attraction? You know, the symbol of America, but it's cracked. You know, no one ever does. Anyone ever mention that the fact that the Liberty Bell, like, there's a crack in the bell, and that's not because they, you know, that's the thing, right? They made the Liberty Bell, and it got a crack in it. But is anybody ever like, dude, this? Like they weren't good at making shit then. There's a crack in Liberty. Also, Philly is Cracktown.
Yeah. It's like this. It's a whole city of fentanyl zombies. Like what's going on here?
Like literally.
Yeah. No offense if you're from Philly, but
we love Philly.
We love Philly. We love our
Will Smith came
Philly.
from.
Yeah, West Philadelphia, born and raised. But yeah, so they go off. So they get dropped off in Filbert, Pennsylvania. And they go to this diner, and this is what I was getting at. This is one of the first times where you see an iPhone, because the iPhone I think came out in 2007, and then this movie came out in 2008. And so this woman is like, so basically what this thing does, whatever this thing is, it makes people off themselves in, you know, varying gross kind of ways. And so this woman is
like right away.
Yeah. And so this woman is like, oh, look, my, cousin or whatever just sent me this. And it's a cell phone video. She shows him, she shows Wahlberg on her iPhone, and it's explicitly shown. It shows the Apple on the back. So we know it's an iPhone. It's product placement of where this like zookeeper goes into a lion enclosure and basically holds his arms out to the lion, and one of them like rips it off. And I mean, it's like goofy B movie. Kind of, Tiger. I never watched that, but
he was like, I'm on crystal. He like stuck his arm out and the tiger ate it, and he was like, it's so good. And then what she did is she eat her iPhone. Is that how she offed herself? She like, I forget how she did it. Or did she even do that? We haven't
because they were still in the diner, because that's like where they pulled the, they had the TV and like, oh, everybody, we're gonna gather around, it's like, what was that thing?
The ubiquitous diner.
Yeah, there's like you got to you gather the family around and turn the radio on and
yeah. Remember diners?
Yeah, so they're kind of sitting in a diner and there's all these people there for some reason. And
you want a steak sandwich? You want cigarettes on that sandwich? What am I, Mary? Of course I want cigarettes on that sandwich. We got a garden hose with a sunflower. They got codes for everything they make in the diner.
What are you saying? I look like a Taco Bell kind of guy? You ever see Cigarettes and Coffee, the Jim Jarmusch film?
No. Dude, I forgot that existed.
There's that great scene between Tom Waits and Iggy Pop where Tom Waits is like, well, if you don't like it here, like, you could go to Taco Bell. And Iggy Pop is like, what, are you saying I look like a Taco Bell kind of guy? And then Tom Waits is like smoking a cigarette and he's like, I can have one now, because I've quit.
He's like, I got a voice just like this YouTube guy. He does literature.
Literally same person.
Same voice.
But so it's kind of inexplicable because then it's like, oh well, here's this map of where all these outbreaks are happening from Maryland to Massachusetts. It's a specific Maryland to Massachusetts, and why there's like, oh well, there's this one area on the map where it's like 90 miles away from everything else. Let's go there. So all these people came in on the train. Then all of a sudden, these people get off the train and they all run into cars and take off. And it's like, so wait. How did you get cars? Did you all just jump in cars with locals?
And
How did you
and if they
fit all
got off the
people
train,
there?
why did they go to the diner first? Why didn't they just get in their car and then go?
Right. Yeah. It's like, are they going? Like, clearly they weren't going to Filbert. Like, what's going on? Why go to the diner? Yeah. The whole thing makes no sense. And so they, then there's this gardener, or not a gardener, excuse me, a nursery, like a guy who runs a nursery, him and his wife. And I recognize both the actor and the actress, couldn't place them. And so Leguizamo, he goes off with somebody else because he's going to go to somewhere in Pennsylvania, wherever it is, or Princeton. He's going to Princeton, New Jersey to find his wife. Well, then
fancy.
He's they're riding in a soft top Jeep, and of course there's a rip in the fabric in the top, and there's that whistling sound when it comes on the wind, right? So we see the wind again. We see this poison or whatever it is on the wind. It gets in, and then
meanwhile they're cranking the AC.
Yeah, or no, they close the vents. Don't I think they had the AC on, then they close the vents.
Yeah, it's oxygen proof in the Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah,
right? With the strangers they met at the nursery, right? Who had the opium farm.
And so then they crash into a tree, and then people get thrown out, and then Leguizamo slashes his wrist with a piece of glass.
Yeah, Mersh was like, "Yeah, I'm John Leguizamo. I'm gonna wreck into a tree, and then the first thing I see, I'm gonna off myself with, which is like what, a piece of glass in the road."
Yeah.
Did you say? Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it's like when you watch the thing, it's like you really want to try and find some sort of like, what are they doing? Like, is there something I'm missing here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this actually more complex than I imagine? Is this predictive? Is it revelatory? Like, they're just driving, they see the vent, and then and then it happens right away. Is this supposed to be an allegory for the future neurotoxic thing that's going to happen? Is this like, is it Fort Meade? Is it, what is this thing? But they don't do any of that, and I think that could work if they introduced an element of the fact that the whole movie is based on this premise where there's an invisible threat, but it doesn't work in the same way that the thing does work.
Yes.
Right. The thing works because that we ask ourselves these questions continuously watching it because of the human drama that goes on. Because what the real result is that like the people start being suspicious of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it becomes a microcosm for like, humans and society. This is just like people randomly in random places that we don't know, we don't really care about. And they find cars in weird places and they drive off. Some are too slow, some are too fast. It kind of reminded me of what's the one with Julia Roberts that just came out, about the world ending. This is the way the world ends, or whatever, with Ethan Hawke. I covered it on the members
like
thing.
That.
Yeah, that, like, because Ethan Hawke is driving that one scene, he gets like all the flyers come down that say like jihad or whatever on it, and it's clearly fake. And the tanker liner crashes on the beach, and they're like, "What's that about?" And then they just walk away. That also had huge flaws, but the point of that also is that there's some sort of there's no communication. They just need to know what's happening. Unfortunately, the alpha in all these situations is Mark Wahlberg, and he's not great at leadership or being a reliable figure. He's too lost. Where am I? What is that? The wind? What? No, don't knock on the window. Don't go in the door. It's like, no one's going to listen to you. Your tone of voice is it's interrogative. Like, you need to make imperative demands for the kids not to bang on the stranger's door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That whole scene was his fault.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Cause they run into this guy from the army, and then these other people show up. There's these people kind of converge at this crossroads, and then they realize, okay, we have to split up. and we have to get to where all the places where people are offing themselves are densely populated areas. So we have to go to small areas like where there's no people. So then they take off and they split up into groups. Well, then one of the groups, I guess, is too big or something, and then those people all off themselves. And so then this other group, it's Wahlberg and Zoe Deschanel, and then Leguizamo's daughter, and then these two teenage boys. And so then they take off. They go to this model home where like everything's fake. There's like fake wine in the glasses. And I don't mean like grape juice. I mean like it's actually solid. So it's set up to look like they're having sushi and wine and orange juice, but everything is like solid. So it's all fake. And so
I don't remember that scene. But I feel like it reminded me of remember in Indiana Jones in the Crystal Skull, right when he gets to the fake nuke village, right before they drop the A-bomb test or whatever, and he gets in the refrigerator to save himself, packed with lead, so he survives. Weird scene. I guess whenever they have like fake model things in movies, right? It's like Hereditary, right? The simulacra. It's like is this supposed to say that the people in this are like set pieces?
Yeah.
I suppose that's one. I guess that's what they're trying to say. They're probably not trying to say anything. It was just the Shyamalan going like, what can we put in here that like would be edgy and cool?
It's like a cheap gag. He probably ripped it off from Arrested Development because they live in the model home. That's probably where he probably saw Arrested Development and was like, this show's funny, which it is. I like Arrested Development, but he probably thought this is funny. Let me have him go to a model home where everything's fake.
I bet you're probably right about that. I bet that is actually what happened.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He had the assistant contact the production assistant on that, and they were like, "Yeah, we can lend it to you for a day." And they're like, "All right,
we'll give you all the set pieces." So yeah, then these other people show up, and then that's where the guy like turns on the lawnmower type thing, tractor thing, and then runs himself over. So they realize, oh, these people are getting poisoned because they're like, we have to stay ahead of the wind because it's coming on the wind, so we have to get ahead of it. So these people, then Wahlberg and his people, they take off running. Yeah, and then you said, like you mentioned, they go to this house where people are barricaded in. The two teenage boys are like
so ludicrous,
beating on the doors, trying to break in, and so they end up both getting shot with a shotgun.
And the guy, and it's like, dude, have you never seen any movie or been in a situation where like there's a guy and the house looks scary and you walk up and the guy goes like, don't step on my porch. And you're like, okay, I'll just go somewhere else. And then he's like, sir, just let us in. We just need a piece of chicken or something. We need something to drink. The kids are banging on it. And it's clearly clearly inside is who would be inside? Who would the character be inside? It would be
the lady from The Wind, Lizzie, with the flintlock shotgun.
It would be Nick Cage from Long Legs.
Yeah.
Come back today, tomorrow, let me in. Right, they look inside and there's a man with a weird mask of his own face inside, and it's like that should tell you to go away from this isolated place, dude.
Yeah.
So they get smoked.
Well, one thing that was and we'll get to this in a minute when we get to the lady whose house they end up staying at. But this movie I noticed has a real kind of it's like sort of an anti-rural, sort of pro-urban kind of streak to it because, Mark Wahlberg, he's like the, slick cool high school teacher, teaches in the, public school, and his wife, does something or whatever. And, they don't have any children, and they're, just kind of doing their thing, and they're not really, their marriage is whatever. But then it's like they go out to, these rural areas. And of course, those people are all just like dumb, and they're, like just running around. It's some of the scene where they all run out of the diner and get in cars. It's almost like slapstick level of
Yeah,
that
it's
kind
like
of
rat
thing. And then
race.
it's
Yeah.
and so then I mean, look, if someone is trying to break into your home, you're perfectly within your rights, as applicable in your country and state. I don't know where you live, but in places, I think in most of the U.S., if someone tries to break into your home, is like beating your door down, you were well within your rights to blast them full of buckshot. Like that's
Same as
you
if you get a door, a unsolicited person coming to your door, ringing your doorbell, a salesman or somebody trying to cut your grass, when you see them walking up before they can even ring the doorbell, you open the door very fast and you go, "I've been waiting for you. Come on in." You can do that too.
yeah.
And then no one will ever come back. But yeah, it's like
But
when
yeah,
they do that rat race scene, Mark Wahlberg's like, sir, we need a ride. Can you give us a ride? It's
yeah, and the
like,
guy just
dude,
ignores him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
don't
so
know.
it's this whole idea of like that guy's the bad guy
Right.
for defending his home. For like he doesn't know who these people. This guy doesn't know what's going on, and like yeah, it's unfortunate that two teenagers get smoked, but it's like these kids were trying to break down his door, and the same thing. So moving ahead, they find this house that's Wahlberg and Deschanel and Leguizamo's daughter find this house that they think is deserted. Turns out there's a woman who lives there. One of the first things I noticed, because she's like, oh well, I guess I have to ask you to stay for dinner. One of the first things I noticed on the wall behind her, like in the background of her dining room, there's a crucifix on the wall. And then so they stay the night. This woman's obviously, kind of unwell, maybe not unwell, but she's kind of paranoid. And she says, oh, you're going to steal from me. Or she's telling Wahlberg, like, you're going to steal from me. You're going to murder me in my sleep. And he's like, what? No, like, I'm not going to do that at all. And so then he goes looking for her later, finds this room. There's this kind of like creepy, 7 or 8 year old sized doll on the bed. And then there's like religious, looks to be like Roman Catholic artwork covering the walls of the room. And
Yeah. So
this to
obviously
me,
she's the villain,
yeah,
right?
like that was obvious. Like there's clearly an anti-Christian um, thing in this, because that's the only, and it's never explicitly said. I don't think she ever mentions anything about religion or spirituality. I don't think there's any mention of anything like that in the movie, but it's clear that, okay, the one person who has, crucifixes and religious artwork on her walls, of course, she's the insane person. She's the crazy one. She's, the lone nutcase living
Well,
out
it's
in the middle of
and the
nowhere by
irony,
herself.
yeah, the irony with that is that she's also the one who invites them into her home, lets them stay the
Hmm.
night, and feeds them.
Total
Right.
strangers.
So the scene when they're at the table and she like tells that she like smacks the girl's hand or whatever, and she's like, "We don't touch the salt at the table" or whatever. It's like, okay, I get it. She's weird and insane, but also it's her house and whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and that, by the way, that woman is the same. She's in all of his movies. I think she's the one who
Oh,
plays in Trap. She's the FBI profiler who leads the SWAT team, which is dumb. And in
I am an
Split,
FBI profiler.
yeah, yeah. I'm Doctor. My name's Dr. Lecter, and I live alone. Um, turns out she was the villain because they never made it to the back where the well was, right,
Mhm.
where she kept the human water. I just made that up. That's awful. What is human water?
I have no idea.
That's what she calls it. And then also in I think she's the psychiatrist in Split,
Okay.
right? Where James McAvoy's like, "I'm a little girl. Now I'm a basketball player." And she's like, "Interesting. Can I do a home visit later?" um, yeah, but you're right. It's supposed to say that the isolated rural folk are oddballs, unwelcoming and cruel, which that may be the case.
Mhm.
But that's okay because they're also the ones who, when this stuff happens, they're fine.
Yeah.
Um, and the weird guy knocking on the door with the woman and the two kids who are clearly not his kids, while he's inside trying to watch the latest Alex stream, right? It's happening, folks. Right? He already knows what's going on. He's
Mhm.
dialed in. So when people come knocking on his door, of course he's going to react. I don't like how
Yeah.
he reacts. It's probably a little overboard.
Yeah.
I mean, he smoked both of them.
Yeah, that was pretty extreme. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you should just, be. Anyway, I think people get what I'm getting at, but yeah, I mean, there's that scene where they have this because there's a bunch of, it like shows TV newscasts, right? There's multiple newscasts that are shown where it sort of zooms in on the television, and you're watching this, and there's a guy who says that he's like a mathematician, and he's projecting that, well, this thing will peak and then it'll drop off, this event of where people are mass offing themselves, and then that's exactly what happens. And so it then stops, it drops off, and Wahlberg and Zoe Deschanel, they sort of, I guess, unofficially adopt Leguizamo's daughter, and then they chose another newscast where there's this kind of like Fox News looking kind of guy who's interviewing this like climate scientist or something, who's saying that, well, people are saying it's a government conspiracy, people are saying it's this and that, and he said, I think it's like a basically the earth, like Mother Gaia is revolting against us for, the harm we're doing to her, or whatever he's saying. And,
which is a perfectly more acceptable and logical answer. Right.
Yeah. 100%.
The magnetic poles have switched. It happens every few 100 million years. We're in the Triassic era. It doesn't matter though, because, Depop, we need to get the numbers down, and everyone is a, person who came from the amoebas and the black goo.
Yeah.
And my name is climate scientist, Dr. Weatherman.
Yeah.
Weatherman.
I am Dr. I'm Dr. Rain Weatherman. And
he's a Cherokee.
Yeah. So this guy is, he's saying, so then the, Fox News guy is kind of like sitting like this, like, oh yeah, but he's like, well, people, there'd have to be another event for people to believe that, right? So he's saying that this can't be, because it's a one-off kind of thing where a bunch of people do, off themselves in.
It was the Iraqis.
Yeah. It was Saddam Hussein. But so then there's some mention of like a red tide or something. So then it cuts to, actually, I want to say, so it shows them in this kind of like Brooklyn brownstone looking neighborhood 3 months after this like mass extinction event from Maryland to Maine. And it's like this pretty clean, picturesque location, like where Wahlberg and Zoe Deschanel are living. It's like, dude, if you just had that kind of event, would you be back to normal in 3 months? Or like thousands and potentially millions of people just croaked?
I mean, you would if you were a privileged individual who was a capitalist like colonizer. When you've got money where you can recover from such a thing. No, but what's kind of weird about that scene is that do you remember the tsunami, the 2005 tsunami, right? Southeast Asia.
What was the place it hit really bad?
Thailand, Indonesia, right? It was huge. Well, I went to Phuket in Thailand. It was 6 months after that, where Phuket was one of the places where it was hit the hard, like, it G-sided the entire whatever. And I was there 6 months later, and there was no, you couldn't tell at all that had happened at all.
Huh. Okay.
There was no trace. And I kind of, at the time I was thinking like, well, I guess they, the tourism, gave them the funds and all this stuff to recover, build it all right back up. You just would have to, but I guess people do just kind of move along, from stuff. But that stuff with the brownstone and the family, like in the home like that, it's weird that also is a trope that happens in a lot of disaster movies. Like remember the end of remember War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise? Yeah. Right. They make it. I think they make it to Boston. That's where they're headed. And then the mother of the kids is like, we've been waiting for you. Come on in. She's been fine the whole time. Right. Everything seems fine. And I guess it's kind of a cheap way, I guess, of showing, that tomorrow's another day and all that. But it is wild how the thing that's the most annoying about this movie is that, like in 10 Cloverfield Lane, I just covered that one. In that movie, when you find out that there is actually an airborne thing that's like, it's destroying the population. When you see the alien like ship come towards them, it's like spraying a green like mist. So they made it like that so you can visually see that, this is the thing. And then you know what to run away from, to stay ahead of it. It's all just airborne and invisible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work in the movie because the story and the actors and the characters like reacting to it. It's like, oh, we got to stay ahead of the wind. What do you mean? The wind's blowing right now.
Yeah.
Right. And if it gets you, like, you're done right away. There's no recourse. Nobody can survive. Apparently there's no immunity for anyone.
Except for Mark Wahlberg, Zoe Deschanel, and John Leguizamo's daughter.
Yeah, why don't you just go in the basement of where you were in the first place?
Yeah. Why not just do that? I mean, that would have
also
made
why
sense.
Why do we even care about these particular characters? Like, they're not especially like likable. They have nothing that we relate to. They should have made the movie about the train conductors.
Yeah, that would have been way more interesting. I would have watched the heck out of that.
They were like, we became train conductors because we did a play in college where we had to play a train. And we were like, and then we formed a band called Train. I don't know any Train songs. Remember
Hey
that
Soul
band, Train?
Sister, Drops of Jupiter.
That's Train.
Marry Me. Yeah.
I smell sex and a candy. Is that them?
No, that was it Marcy's Playground, I think.
Ah, right. It's weird because that's one of the places where they run to in the movie, Marcy's Playground.
Yeah. Well, it would have been funny if they were like, oh, we're on this train and now we're just on it forever, and this movie is now Snowpiercer.
Eat your slave slop, your black goo cubes. Or if they were on the train and somebody was like, last time I was on a train, it ended up with Ray Fiennes at the end of it. It wasn't good. We're not going to have arguments with these people. Anybody know what movie I'm referencing? That's dark. But yeah.
Anyway.
Or Train. How about Train Spotting?
Train Spotting,
right?
Good movie. I choose not to. What was I choose not to choose life or something like that?
Yeah. Choose life.
I choose not to live.
Choose a big fucking television. Choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's shite being Scottish. We're the scum of the earth. That's a great movie.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Well done. It was well done movie. But then so it ends with this whole thing about, well, people will believe that it was it was Mother Gaia revolting against humans poisoning her if another one happens. Well, then these two guys are walking through whatever that main like thoroughfare thing, whatever it is, through in Paris, where like people walk. It's like every movie that's set in Paris, they have a scene there, and they're walking along it, and so this guy's like, oh yeah, I got to take my bicycle back to like my apartment before work or something, and his friend is like, oh, are you going to so and so's party? And the guy's like, I have to take my bicycle back to my apartment before work, and the guy's like, wait, what? And so then you hear people screaming, and so then it's people. It's like, oh, it's happening again. People are offing themselves, and Charlie. Oh man. And so then that's the end of the movie. He's like,
oh, j'en suis les misérables, la bicyclette. And he rides his bicycle off. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Owen Wilson steps out of a 1920s like Ford Model A. He's like, wow, I was just talking to Gertrude Stein. Wow.
Kathy Bates.
Dude, I like
good movie.
Wait, no, actually, I think I told you after you did that analysis of that movie, it was late. I think you wrapped it up at like 10 something. And I was like, I have to watch this, man. I watched it that night. I didn't go to bed till like 1 a.m. because I was watching Midnight in Paris. And it's Woody Allen, horrible, disgusting, despicable, awful person, but man, Midnight in Paris is one of the. I think I've watched that movie like 5 or 6 times now. It's so good.
Yeah, it's awesome. The dude who plays Hemingway is great. When they go in the cafe and he's like, he does the Hemingway speech. That movie, rewatching that movie made me read Hemingway, which was fortuitous. It was fortuitous. I was not in love. It was purity of thought. It was a thought. And then it was dark. Yeah, that's great. That's one of his great movies. Have you seen Match Point?
Was that the one with Paul Bettany?
That's Wimbledon with him and I think Kirsten Dunst. But I understand that they're made the same year.
Okay, I don't think I've seen Match Point.
Match Point is Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, Matthew Good. It's very good. It's very well done. It's got Matthew Good in it, who I don't like. I've got a personal thing with Matthew Good.
Do you know him?
I knew I was close with somebody who. Okay, my one of my ex-girlfriends was his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, I see. Okay,
from uni, and she said, "Yeah, that's Matthew Good." And I went, "You mean more like Matthew Bad?"
Was it Paul? Now I can't remember if it was Paul Bettany in Wimbledon. I'm pretty sure that was Paul Bettany. That was a good movie. I actually like that. Yeah, it was. Who was?
Kirsten Dunst, I think.
Yeah, Paul Bettany, Kirsten Dunst, Jon Favreau was in that. Sam Neill. I need to rewatch that. Nicholas.
I've been
to
Wimbledon and I've been to the Eiffel Tower. I got to the Eiffel Tower and we were like, "Should we go up?" And we were like, "Nah, we've seen it enough."
Yeah,
that's enough. You don't need to go up it. Like you got to wait in line and pay money to go up the Eiffel Tower and all this shit. We went to the Louvre. I told that story. I was sick. I had like food poisoning. We ran through the entire Louvre. The Mona Lisa is this big.
I didn't know that's no.
It's tiny. Yeah. Yeah, it's tiny.
It always looks large when you see it in like movies or whatever.
You know what is large? They've got Napoleon's tomb there. They've got like his casket is in this like sarcophagus, and it looks like the Nephilim, like it's the Nephilim sarcophagus.
Huh.
And then Versailles. I went to Versailles also. Versailles is like you've seen the pictures, the Hall of Mirrors and all that stuff, but when you go there, you're like, this is the place I've ever seen. Everything is paintings of Louis like as a cherub.
Oh wow.
He's like, I'm a little Venus and I'm flying. And it's like, why would you want yourself painted like into that, first of all? And there's just like so much stuff in the thing. It's kind of, I don't know, overwhelming. Not in a good way that like an old English medieval castle is or something like that. It's very like frilly.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I've been to Philly one time.
I think I went to Philly on a train once. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's where Wharton School of Business. That's where I went. Wharton School of Business, right? That's where Trump went to.
Is Wharton in Philly?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was somewhere else.
UPenn.
UPenn's in Philly?
Yeah. Isn't it, everybody? Isn't it in Philly? I think it is.
Temple is in Philly. UPenn might be too. Actually, I don't know. Let's see where. Okay, it is in Philly. Huh.
Trivia for the folks at home. UPenn, the forgotten member of the original Ivy League. Ivy League, called the Ivy League because there were Ivy 4 schools. Harvard, Yale, that whole Yale thing, Princeton, and Penn.
Is that actually true? Is that where the Ivy League thing comes from?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, Princeton is the school in the Ivy League that it's acceptable for Southern gentlemen agrarians to go to. Southern preppies don't like to go to the other ones. Only Princeton. At least here, that's the case.
Yeah, they don't. Everybody at Brown is like, "Oh, I have a trust fund of $10 billion. I'm going to hacky sack and smoke weed all day."
Brown is where Brian Griffin and Family Guy goes, and he meets the rich guys. Earl Mastercard, area Mastercard, fortune. He's like, "Oh, my gay niece's dog's sister's orphaned brother went to Brown." We all went to Harvard.
One of my favorite bits is Nick Rochefort talking about where Sam says, "Am I going to?" He was like, "Oh yeah, I learned that at RISD." And Nick was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "I went to RISD." He was like, "I was on the football team." I won't say the first position he played. He was like, "I played left crier. I played middle. Call my parents for money. I was really good too. I could run really fast to the ATM. Blue 32, Mom, come get me."
Remember when they said they went to RISD and Sam was like, when I first went there were people lying all over the place, like on the ground drawing. Like there were bodies, like people lying everywhere, like on the ground. And Nick was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Dude, I know exactly what that means.
Mm-hmm.
I can picture that perfectly. That's what drama school is."
Yeah. I went to an artsy liberal arts university. Yeah, I know that well.
That's me in any public place now.
Yeah, I'm just like wearing a stage costume for inexplicable reasons, lying on the floor, and I'm coloring.
Look, if I need to, go to the bathroom, I go to the one place you're supposed to do that, right? The computers at the public library. Did we lose? That's what the public library computers are for.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to take a piss on the keyboard.
Right. That's literally what they are.
Yeah, that's basically actually the library in my town is still nice. The last time I went, but
why you think it's called a CPU? You're gonna see me pee into you.
Into you. The keyboard is I don't know. I can't even do a like crazy person.
Yeah, they told me I find the information in the computer. I broke the thing up and look in it. That's from what's that from? Zoolander. Remember in Zoolander? They're like, it's in the computer. They're like, in the computer.
Mm-hmm.
They smashed the computer up. I'm sorry, that's stupid. Take away the happening is the happening is I don't know, man. This movie sucks so far, so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad that when you watch it, you go, I've had a joke played on me. Right. This was like they were trolling me for watching this shit.
Yeah, it's basically that's probably the best way to put it. Like you feel like you're the butt end of a joke that is not funny, and it's not one of those. Like Mojo says, so bad it's good. I would disagree with that. That like I can put up with a movie that's like a bad good movie, but there are some movies that are just so bad that it's like this is one of those that I said the same thing about Bonfire of the Vanities. If I was just watching that movie on my own time and I wasn't watching it to do an analysis of it for a stream, I would have turned it off.
Yes.
Like I think Bonfire of the Vanities, I would have turned it off. I think it was about 12 minutes in. I would have turned it off. This one, I don't even think I would have made it that far into it. I would have turned it off. I was like, this is unwatchable. Like it's truly, there are not that many movies that I would say are truly unwatchable. The Happening is one of them. It is so bad. It's not, and maybe y'all out there, maybe you think it's funny, and Mojo, I don't know, maybe you do think it's so bad it's good. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I think that's fine. I'm not telling people not to watch it or what movies they should and shouldn't like. I'm just saying my opinion was that it's truly unwatchable. I mean,
I'm generous with movies.
Yeah.
And this movie is so bad. I turned off a few other movies, like, I don't know, within the past couple of years, that Benedict Cumberbatch movie, The Power of the Dog. I turned that off.
Alan Turing movie?
No, that one is that's the Omega, the Enigma Machine movie. That one is,
okay.
I watched that. I went to go see that one. And that one is, kind of what I expected it to be. This is the one where he's like a cowboy or something, and it's got Jesse Plemons in it, and it got all these terrible. Like, it's so bad because there was, whenever like a movie starts off with like some sort of cruelty, especially like, I don't know, whatever. No, I'm not gonna have it. The Siege, the movie with Denzel and Bruce Willis and Annette Bening, which was kind of it's kind of a pre-Big Nine. Martial law movie, but when I went to see it, I was in like 11th grade. My friend and I, we were trying to go see The Water Boy, and we were totally when we went to see this thing. We were like, "Oh, we're gonna get we're going to get whatever and go see an Adam Sandler movie. And it was sold out. So we went to go see The Siege. And I was like, dude, this is like a bad trip. This is awful. This is so bad.
And you look at your friend and you're like, dude, and your friend's like, I didn't know you like to get wet.
You know, dust, Sherm, right? Riding the Big Dipper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this movie sucks. I will be doing a stream on Megalopolis maybe tomorrow night, the Coppola movie, which I don't want to say too much other than to say that it is as bad as this movie is. Megalopolis is on a whole other level.
Is it the worst you've ever seen?
It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but I really wanted to walk out. And we didn't walk out because I was like, if there's something at the end that is a key to all this, right? It's a neo-Gnostic, he's the Masonic architect. It's a new world. It's all that stuff. But that it wasn't that. Shia LaBeouf is in it. And here's the thing. Okay. With that movie and with this, there's a thing in movies where you can tell watching it that it's thrown together. It's last minute. They're doing whatever. And it's a way for the actors to just do audition tapes. And that is like egregious. It's so bad. Gangs of New York, all these years later, I'm kind of like, most of the movie is kind of like that in a lot of ways. Like Daniel Day-Lewis is too good for the movie. There's too many, like these movies are like directors having too much control, and like we're watching them just like tank. They had everything good that they had has just gone out the window. I hated the movie The Irishman, the Scorsese movie. I hated that movie. And there's a lot of these directors who are like, they're too prolific, or they're getting too like advanced in terms of their work, and it's just bad material. Clint Eastwood needs to stop making movies.
Yeah, I like Clint Eastwood, but he needs to hang it up. I mean, I think that when it comes to directors, I think David Lynch does pretty well with total creative control. But I mean, I'm trying to think of other people who, if you just let them run free as directors and do whatever they want, that it actually comes out to be a really good kind of. I mean, David Lynch, like his, you can tell that guy because. Dune is kind of the Dune that he did is it's debated on if it's good or not. And I think one of his biggest beefs was that he didn't get final cut and he didn't have creative control. And I think that movie would be regarded much higher if he actually had the ability to have full creative control and final cut of the movie.
A lot of directors will make that point, but at the same time, that's why like the director's cut, right, is the DVD director's cut or whatever, and that's not the version we watched. And the director's cut like rarely is the like way that the movie should have been. It's actually very rare. Like Stanley Kubrick is always the example of the person who had final cut with his movies, but it's also like that Kubrick stream I did. It's like, but Kubrick's movies were never successful when they came out, and he had final cut because the Seaspiracy with the thing is because of the moon stuff and all that. Like that's why he had final cut. But the movies, as classic as they are, like they never did well and all that stuff. Like Clockwork Orange, like getting banned in the UK. He's the one who had it banned. That doesn't make sense that he would have his own movie banned like that.
Yeah.
Except for bigger motives or whatever. Tarantino, right? An auteur, like didn't those were Weinstein. Right, there's somebody. The point of the director is that they have the artistic vision and they're putting the things together, but that the executive producers are the ones who are over them, keeping people in line and making sure that the movies are what they are supposed to be, which is a weird concept because it's not like you have an architect and they're building a physical thing and like there's the plan, they're going to build it, we know what it's going to be, right? Or like people like landscaping or digging ditches or whatever, something like concrete. This is like a work of art that's totally interpretive and like they're creating on the spot. So it's weird to think that there could be people who have control over those people to make sure that it's something that happens.
Right. No, that's a good point.
So,
But yeah, I guess I think it was a good
damn,
note to wrap it up on. I do have to. I got to be up super
3
early
hours.
tomorrow. So
Damn.
thank you so much to everybody for hanging out in the chat. We had a lot of fun in that one. Yeah, I mean, The Wind. You know, if you're into that kind of thing, I mean, I think it's kind of the supernatural, tense, paranoid kind of horror movie. I think it's worth watching. If you're sensitive to extreme, really dark kind of subject matter, maybe skip that one. But The Happening, I would say skip that one entirely. We watched it, we suffered through it, and had some fun with it. So y'all don't have to, unless you're just like a Shyamalan completist for some reason. You want to see everything he's done. I don't know who, if you're out there. Anyway, maybe check out some other directors. But anyway, thanks to BLA for hanging out. It's always great having you on. It was a lot of fun. So I guess that's pretty much it. Do you have anything coming up? I think you mentioned a few things you have. Is there anything coming up within the next week that you want the people to know about?
Well, thanks everybody who stopped by and everybody who's going to watch this in the future. Please come over to my channel, Bazed Analyzer. These are our people right here anyway. So please come by. I think tomorrow night I'm going to be doing that Megalopolis analysis. And I got a bunch of other ones coming up. I would say with M. Night Shyamalan, watch Signs if you haven't seen it. Signs is great. It's based Mel he's very good in it. It's a really good movie. Yeah, I think that's about it. So we're going strong into the end of Spooktober here. I'm about done with Spooktober movies here. And getting back to some literature. And I guess that's about it, man. Thanks for having me, dude. 3 hours. I mean, we talk on the phone for longer than this, so
that's true.
Ain't no thing for us.
No, it's just like a normal conversation, just with an audience. So yeah, I don't have anything directly coming up, but I am going to be doing. I do have that. I finally got American Psycho. I need to reread that, so I'm gonna.
They're remaking the movie, by the way.
I heard that today, and I
don't get it.
I don't feel great about that. I think it's going to be terrible. I'm probably not going to watch it, but
they can make his other books into movies.
Yeah, I mean, they could do. Well, they've already done Less Than Zero. They did Rules of Attraction. They did. I mean, I would love to see someone try to do a proper adaptation of Lunar Park and Glamorama.
It's exactly what I thought.
If they could get the
those
right
are my two choices.
Director, they get the right script writer, they get the right cat. I mean, those could be huge. Glamorama and Lunar Park would be incredible. And I think if they I would like to see a remake of the Rules of Attraction. I think if they could do one that was more faithful to the book and just kind of done differently, I think that would be good. But anyway, so American Psycho stream coming up soon. I have some other books I'm going to be trying to get into here eventually. But anyway, thanks again, everybody. Have a great night, and we will see you all sometime soon.